My wife invited her ex-lover and gave him my master suite. On the pre-wedding vacation I paid for, I canceled the wedding. I should have known something was wrong when Maya started talking about our special guests with that particular brightness in her voice, the kind that's a little too loud, a little too insistent, like she's trying to convince herself as much as me. We were sitting in our apartment on a Tuesday night, the kind of evening where the city hums below and the wine tastes like everything is exactly as it should be. I'd just gotten back from a brutal week of client meetings, the kind that leave your jaw sore from smiling through negotiations. Maya had lit candles, made pasta. She was wearing the cream sweater I'd bought her in Barcelona, the one that made her eyes look like they held entire oceans. "I've been thinking about the pre-wedding vacation," she said, twirling her fork through linguine. "About who we should invite." I leaned back, relaxed. We'd been planning this trip for months, a week in my family's lake house upstate before the wedding. A last hurrah before we signed our names together in permanent ink. My parents had offered us the place, all cedar and glass, overlooking water so still it looked like someone had painted it there. 10 bedrooms, a boat dock, enough space that we could invite our closest friends and family, make it something magical before the chaos of the actual wedding weekend. "I was thinking Mike and Sarah," I said. "Maybe your sister and Tom. Keep it intimate, close family, and the friends who've actually been there for us." Maya nodded, but her eyes were doing something else, skittering sideways, landing on her wine glass. "Exactly. People who matter, which is why I thought we should invite Daniel." I blinked, set down my fork carefully, the way you do when you're not sure you heard correctly, but you're already feeling the first cold finger of something unpleasant trace your spine. "Daniel," I repeated, not a question, a confirmation that she'd actually said the name. "Yes." She was smiling now, that bright, brittle smile. "Daniel Chen, from college. You remember, I've mentioned him." Oh, I remembered. I remembered because 3 months into our relationship, Maya had gotten drunk at a friend's birthday party and told me everything about Daniel. About how they dated for 2 years in college, about how intense it was, how passionate, how they'd talked about getting married before it all fell apart in their senior year, about how she'd been devastated for months afterward, about how she sometimes still dreamed about him. She'd cried telling me, said she wanted me to know everything about her past because we were building something real, something that required honesty. I'd held her and told her I appreciated her trust. I'd meant it. Everyone has exes. Everyone has history. But that was different from inviting history to sleep in my family's house on the vacation I was paying for before our wedding. "Your ex-boyfriend Daniel," I said slowly. "It's been 10 years, James." She laughed, and it sounded like glass breaking very far away. "We're completely over it. We're friends now. Actually, we've been back in touch for a few months, just catching up. Nothing weird, and when I mentioned the trip, he seemed really interested in seeing the lake house. You always said it was beautiful." The candles flickered. Outside, a siren wailed its way down 8th Avenue. I watched Maya's face, trying to understand what I was seeing there. Her expression was so earnest, so open, so completely convinced that what she was saying made perfect sense. "You want to invite your ex-boyfriend," I said, "to our pre-wedding vacation." "Our friend," she corrected gently, "who happens to be someone I dated a long time ago." "James, you're being territorial. It's not like that anymore. We're adults. Besides, I thought you'd appreciate it. You're always saying we should make an effort to include people from each other's lives." That was true. I had said that. But I'd been thinking about her work, friends I'd never met, or her cousin who lived in Portland, not the man she'd once planned to marry, the one who apparently still showed up in her dreams occasionally. "How long have you two been back in touch?" I asked. "A few months. Since spring, maybe. We ran into each other at that conference in Boston. You remember when I went for that HR summit?" I remembered. She'd come back energized, glowing, talking about innovative workplace strategies. She hadn't mentioned running into Daniel. "And you didn't think to tell me you'd reconnected with your ex?" "James." She reached across the table, grabbed my hand. Her fingers were cool. Or maybe mine were suddenly too warm. You're making this into something it's not. We got coffee twice. We text occasionally. It's purely platonic. I love you. I'm marrying you. Daniel is he's a friend who was important to me once, and I thought it would be nice to include him in our celebration, to show him how happy I am now. There it was. That particular construction of words that should have sounded generous, but instead felt like a taunt. To show him how happy I am now. As if the real gift of inviting Daniel wasn't about our friendship or adult maturity, but about rubbing her new life in his face. About proving something. But proving what? That she'd moved on? That she'd won by getting engaged to me? Or was there something else? Something I couldn't quite see yet but could feel pressing against the edges of this conversation like a bruise forming under skin. What does Daniel do now? I asked, buying time, trying to understand the shape of this thing. He's in consulting, corporate strategy. He's doing really well, actually just made partner at his firm. She was still smiling, still holding my hand. You two would probably get along great. You're both in that whole business world, both analytical. I think you'd have a lot to talk about. I pulled my hand back gently, picked up my wine glass. The burgundy inside looked like liquid shadow in the candlelight. Everything about this conversation felt wrong, but I couldn't quite articulate why. On paper, Maya was right. We were adults. People stayed friends with exes all the time. I had exes I was on good terms with, though notably, I hadn't invited any of them to our pre-wedding vacation. Who else were you thinking of inviting? I asked, trying a different angle. She brightened, sensing victory. Well, definitely your parents, obviously, and my sister and Tom, Mike and Sarah, like you said, maybe your brother if he can get time off work. And I thought Amanda might like to come. You remember Amanda from my book club? She's going through a divorce and could use some friend time. So Daniel wouldn't be the only new addition to the group. Exactly. She squeezed my hand again, victorious. See? It's not about him specifically. I just want to bring together the people who matter to us. And Daniel is someone who was important to me during a formative time in my life. I want him to see this next chapter. I want him to meet you, really meet you. See us together. See what we've built. There was that language again. See what we've built, as if our relationship was a monument constructed specifically for ex-boyfriends to admire. As if Daniel's witnessing was somehow a necessary component of our happiness. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I nodded slowly, set down my wine glass, looked at the woman I'd been planning to marry in 3 months, and tried to find words that wouldn't sound paranoid, or possessive, or small. I need to think about it, I said finally. Her smile dimmed, just slightly. Just enough that I saw the flash of something underneath irritation, maybe, or calculation. It was gone so quickly I almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. Of course, she said. Take your time. I just think it would be really meaningful for all of us. We finished dinner in a strange, strained silence that Maya tried to fill, with chatter about work and wedding details and whether we should do a champagne toast or signature cocktails. I made appropriate responses. I helped clear the dishes. I kissed her goodnight and lay beside her in the darkness of our bedroom, listening to her breathing, even out into sleep while my mind spun in circles. People don't invite their exes to their pre-wedding vacations. Not exes they'd once planned to marry. Not exes who still appeared in their dreams. Not unless there was something unfinished, something unresolved, something that needed to be worked out or proven or what. I got up at 2 a.m, couldn't sleep, made myself tea in the kitchen, stood at the window, looking down at the street, at the few people still walking through the city's never quite night. A couple holding hands. A delivery driver hunched against the spring chill. A woman in a red coat smoking a cigarette outside a closed bodega. I thought about Maya's face when she'd said Daniel's name. The brightness, the insistence, the way she'd already been preparing her arguments before I'd even objected. I thought about the fact that she'd been in contact with him for months without mentioning it. I thought about her wanting him to see us together, to see what we'd built, to witness her happiness, as if happiness required an audience to become real. And I thought about the lake house, my family's lake house, the place where I'd spent every summer of my childhood, where my grandfather had taught me to fish, where I'd proposed to Maya on the dock at sunset 6 months ago while loons called across the water, the place that meant more to me than almost anywhere on earth. Did I really want Daniel Chen there, sleeping in one of those 10 bedrooms, eating breakfast at the same table where my grandmother had told stories, witnessing the last peaceful week before Maya and I legally bound our lives together? I finished my tea, rinsed the cup, went back to bed. Maya stirred as I slid under the covers. "You okay?" she murmured, half asleep. "Yeah," I whispered. "Just thinking." About Daniel? Even in sleep, she was focused on him. Even in the dark, in our bed, in the middle of the night, his name was the first thing on her lips. "About everything," I said. She made a soft sound, already drifting back under. "It'll be fine," she said. "You'll see. It'll be perfect." I lay there listening to her breathe, watching shadows move across the ceiling, and wondered what perfect meant anymore. Wondered if I was being unreasonable. Wondered if I was seeing problems where none existed. Manufacturing drama from insecurity and possessiveness. But mostly I wondered why. If inviting Daniel was such a casual, uncomplicated thing, Maya had waited until we were already 3 months away from the wedding to bring it up. Why she'd reconnected with him without telling me. Why his presence at our pre-wedding vacation seemed to matter so much to her that she'd already planned out her entire argument before broaching the subject. The city hummed below our window, the night stretched out, and somewhere in the darkness, I made a decision. I would say yes to Daniel coming. I would be the bigger person, the mature adult, the man secure enough in his relationship that his fiancé's college boyfriend could vacation at his family's house without it threatening anything. I would say yes, and then I would watch, carefully, closely, because something about this whole thing felt wrong, felt calculated, felt like a test I didn't know I was taking. But I would find out. Over the next few weeks, in the lead up to this vacation, in whatever Maya did or didn't do, I would figure out exactly what game was being played here. And if I was wrong, if my suspicions were just paranoid noise, then I'd apologize, and we'd have a beautiful week at the lake, and everything would be fine. But if I was right, then I needed to know now, before I signed any papers, before I stood up in front of everyone we knew and promised forever. The sun started rising somewhere around 5. Gray light leaked into the room. Maya shifted, curved her body against mine, murmured my name in her sleep. I held her and stared at the ceiling and waited for morning to fully arrive, carrying with it whatever truth was waiting to emerge. Because the thing about truth is this: it doesn't stay buried forever. Eventually, one way or another, it surfaces, sometimes gently, like a leaf floating to the top of still water. Sometimes violently, like a drowning man breaking through. I just didn't know yet which kind of emergence this would be, but I was about to find out. I told Maya yes on Thursday morning. We were getting ready for work in that synchronized dance. Couples develop her at the bathroom mirror with her makeup, me at the closet choosing between the navy suit and the charcoal. NPR murmuring from the kitchen speaker about infrastructure bills and climate summits, coffee brewing, the ordinary machinery of our life together clicking along like it always had. "I thought about it," I said, nodding my tie. "About Daniel coming to the lake house." She paused, mascara wand halfway to her lashes. Our eyes met in the mirror. "And? It's fine. You're right, we're adults. If he's important to you, then he should be there." The smile that broke across her face was so bright, so genuinely delighted, that for a moment I felt guilty for having suspected anything. This was just Maya being inclusive, being generous, wanting to share our happiness with people from all chapters of her life. What was wrong with that? She turned, threw her arms around my neck, kissed me hard enough that I tasted her coffee and mint toothpaste. "Thank you," she breathed against my mouth. "Thank you for understanding. This means so much to me, James. You have no idea." But that was the thing. I did have some idea, or at least the beginning of one. because the intensity of her gratitude felt disproportionate to the favor granted. We were talking about adding one person to a guest list, not me donating a kidney. "Just promise me something," I said, holding her at arm's length so I could see her face clearly. "Anything. If there's anything I should know about you and Daniel, anything unresolved, anything that might make this weird, tell me now, before we're all trapped in the same house for a week." Her expression didn't change, didn't flicker or falter or show any sign of discomfort. She just looked at me with those ocean eyes and said, "James, I love you. I'm marrying you. Daniel is ancient history. There's nothing to worry about. I promise." And because I wanted to believe her, because the alternative was too painful to contemplate this early in the morning with coffee brewing and work waiting, I nodded and finished knotting my tie and let the subject drop. But I didn't forget. I filed her promise away in some careful corner of my mind, right next to her insistence that there was nothing to worry about. Because people who have nothing to hide don't usually need to promise quite so emphatically. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of wedding logistics and work deadlines, and Maya's increasing excitement about the lake house trip. She'd taken over the planning with a kind of focused energy she usually reserved for major work projects. Guest list finalized, grocery orders placed, activity schedules drafted. She'd created a shared Google Doc with everyone's arrival times, dietary restrictions, room assignments. It was that last item that caught my attention. On a rainy Sunday afternoon, I was sitting at our dining table going through quarterly reports when Maya came over with her laptop, bright-eyed and energized. "I figured out the room situation," she announced, turning the screen toward me. "Want to see?" I looked at the spreadsheet she'd created. Color-coded, perfectly organized. My parents in the first-floor guest suite, good, they'd appreciate not having to climb stairs. Her sister and Tom in the blue room upstairs. Mike and Sarah in the room with the ensuite bathroom. Her friend Amanda in the small room near the kitchen. And then I saw it. Master Suite. I stared at those words for a long moment, feeling something cold and sharp settle into my chest. "The Master Suite?" I said carefully. "Well, yes." Maya was already scrolling through to another tab, showing me her grocery list. "It's the nicest room. And since Daniel's coming alone while everyone else is coupled up, I thought he should get the best space. It seemed like the hospitable thing to do. The Master Suite. The room with the king bed and the balcony overlooking the lake and the freestanding bathtub and the fireplace. The room my parents had used for 30 years before they'd retired and moved to a smaller place. The room where Maya and I had stayed when I proposed. The room that was, in every meaningful sense, my room when I was at the lake house. "Maya," I closed her laptop gently. "The Master Suite is where we usually stay. I know, but we can take the green room. It's still nice. It has the window seat and everything. I just thought, since Daniel's traveling alone, without a partner, the least we could do is make him comfortable. Show him real hospitality." She said this like it was obvious, like I was being unreasonable for questioning it. "You want to give your ex-boyfriend the master bedroom in my family's house on our pre-wedding vacation? James." She sighed, and there was a note of exasperation in it now. "Why do you keep calling him my ex-boyfriend? He's my friend." "And this isn't about him being an ex or not being an ex. This is about being a good host. Would you rather put him in the tiny room near the kitchen and give Amanda the master suite? Because I can rearrange if that makes you feel better." It was a clever deflection. Make it about general hosting principles rather than the specific issue of Daniel. Make me seem petty for caring who got which room. Make the problem my insecurity rather than her increasingly strange decisions. "How about we stay in the master suite like we always do?" I said evenly. "And Daniel gets the green room, which is still one of the nicest rooms in the house." Maya's lips pressed into a thin line. "Fine," she said. "If it matters that much to you." "It does." "Okay." She reopened her laptop, made the change with sharp, irritated keystrokes. "Green room for Daniel. Master suite for us. Happy?" I wasn't happy. I was starting to feel like I was playing a game where only Maya knew the rules, where every conversation was a negotiation and every decision was a test. But I nodded and said, "Thank you." and went back to my quarterly reports while she returned to planning with slightly less enthusiasm than before. That night, after Maya had gone to bed early, claiming a headache, I did something I'm not proud of. I opened her laptop password, was our anniversary. She'd never changed it, and looked at her messages. I didn't go deep, didn't excavate old emails or read through months of texts. I just wanted to see the recent conversations with Daniel, wanted to understand the tone and frequency and content of their renewed friendship. What I found made my hands go cold. They weren't just texting occasionally, as Maya had claimed. They were messaging daily, sometimes multiple times a day. The conversation went back not a few months, but nearly 8 months to last September, right around the time we'd gotten engaged. I scrolled through. Heart pounding. Saw your engagement post. Congratulations. He's a lucky guy. Thank you. I'm really happy. How have you been? Good. Busy with work. Sometimes I think about how things might have been different. With us. Me too sometimes. But we were so young. Doesn't mean it wasn't real. No, it doesn't. The conversation continued. Gradually grew more frequent, more familiar, more intimate in that way that happens when old lovers reconnect. They talked about their relationship, about what had gone wrong, about regrets and what-ifs. They talked about me, Maya, describing me in ways that felt oddly clinical, like she was trying to convince herself as much as Daniel that I was the right choice. James is stable, successful. He'll be a good father someday. He treats me well. Sounds perfect on paper. He is perfect. On paper and off paper. Off paper is more complicated. But that's life, right? We make practical choices. I felt something crack inside my chest reading that. Practical choices. Was that what I was? A sensible decision? A good investment? The safe bet she'd chosen over the passionate mistake of her youth? I kept scrolling. Found the messages from 3 weeks ago when Maya had first mentioned the lake house trip. We're doing a pre-wedding vacation at James's family lake house. 10 bedrooms, right on the water. It's beautiful. Sounds nice. You should come. There was a pause in the messages. 2 hours where Daniel hadn't responded. Then, are you serious? Completely. I want you there. I want you to see us together. To see that I'm happy. That I made the right choice. Did you make the right choice? Come to the lake house and find out. I closed the laptop, sat in the dark living room, felt the city noise drift up from the street below cars and voices, and the distant wail of a siren. All the sounds of people living their lives, making their choices, building their futures on foundations that maybe weren't as solid as they thought. Come to the lake house and find out. What did that mean? What game was Maya playing? Was this about proving something to Daniel or to herself? Was she trying to make him jealous? To win some decades-old competition? Or was this something worse? Was she actually questioning her choice, using this vacation as some kind of test to see if she still felt something for him? I thought about confronting her right then, going into the bedroom, waking her up, demanding to know what the hell she was thinking. But confrontation required knowing what you were confronting, having all the pieces of the puzzle, and I only had fragments, suggestive, disturbing fragments, but not the whole picture. So instead, I made a different decision. I would let this play out. I would go to the lake house, watch Maya and Daniel together, and see exactly what this was really about. I would gather evidence, observe patterns, understand the full scope of whatever was happening before I made any moves. And in the meantime, I would make some arrangements of my own. The next morning, I called my brother Ryan. He lived in Chicago, worked in corporate law, and had always been the person I turned to when I needed clear-headed advice untainted by emotion. "Little brother," he answered, "to what do I owe the pleasure?" "I need a favor," I said. "The pre-wedding lake house trip. Are you still planning to come?" "Wouldn't miss it. Already requested the time off." "Why?" I told him. Not everything, not about reading Maya's messages. That felt too invasive to admit even to Ryan. But I told him about Daniel being invited, about Maya's strange insistence, about the undercurrents I was sensing but couldn't quite name. Ryan was quiet for a long moment after I finished. Then, "You want me to keep an eye on things. Is that crazy?" "No, he said slowly. No, that's not crazy. If your gut is telling you something's wrong, James, you should listen to it. How many times have you had feelings like this about Maya before? Never. Exactly. So this isn't you being paranoid or possessive. This is you noticing a pattern that doesn't fit. I'll come a day early, help you set up, and yeah, I'll watch. Discreetly. But if there's something to see, we'll see it. I felt a wash of relief at having an ally. Someone who would bear witness to whatever unfolded. Thank you. That's what brothers are for. Though, James, you should also consider the possibility that you're right to be worried. And if you are, you need to be prepared to act on it. Don't ignore red flags just because acknowledging them is painful. After I hung up, I sat with that advice. Ryan was right. I'd spent the past 2 weeks convincing myself I was overreacting, that Maya's behavior was odd but ultimately innocent. But the messages I'd read told a different story. They suggested manipulation, calculation, a woman hedging her bets, or orchestrating some kind of emotional showdown. Either way, I needed to know the truth before I married her. I also called my parents that afternoon, casual and light, asking about their plans for the trip. We're so excited, my mother said. It's been too long since we've had a proper gathering at the lake house. Are you sure you don't want us to bring anything? Just yourselves, I said. But Mom, there's something I wanted to mention. Maya's invited a friend from college, her ex-boyfriend actually, guy named Daniel. She says they're just friends now, but I wanted you to know in case it seems awkward or strange. My mother's silence spoke volumes. Then, her ex-boyfriend, to your pre-wedding vacation. She says it's about including important people from her past. James. My mother had this way of saying my name that conveyed both love and concern and complete unwillingness to let me bullshit myself. Do you believe that? I don't know what I believe anymore. Then find out, she said firmly. Before you marry this woman, make absolutely sure you know who she is and what she wants. Your father and I like Maya very much, but we like you more, and we don't want to see you hurt. These conversations with Ryan, with my mother, helped crystallize something for me. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. People who loved me, people with no agenda other than my well-being, were also seeing red flags, which meant it was time to stop dismissing my instincts and start trusting them. That evening, Maya came home with takeout from our favorite Thai place and news that Daniel had confirmed he could make the full week at the lake house. He's so excited, she said, unpacking containers of pad thai and green curry. He said it sounds amazing, and he's really looking forward to meeting everyone, especially you. Great, I said, keeping my voice neutral. When does he arrive? Same day as us, next Friday. He's driving up from the city. She paused, gave me a searching look. You're really okay with this, right? You seem tense. This would have been the moment to tell her, to say I'd seen her messages, that I knew this wasn't the casual friendly gesture she was pretending it was, that I understood she was playing some kind of game and I wanted to know the rules, but I didn't. Because I'd learned something important about Maya over the past 2 weeks. She was good at deflecting, at reframing, at making her questionable choices seem reasonable, and my concerns seem like character flaws. If I confronted her now, she'd have a week to prepare, to adjust her strategy, to cover her tracks. Better to let her think I was the oblivious, trusting fiancé. Better to watch and wait and see what she did when she thought I wasn't paying attention. So I smiled and said, I'm fine, just a lot on my mind with work and the wedding. But I'm looking forward to the trip. It'll be good to relax, spend time with everyone. She visibly relaxed, came over and kissed my forehead. It's going to be perfect, she said. You'll see, this week is going to change everything. And as I looked up at her, at the woman I'd been planning to spend my life with, I thought, yes, it probably will, just not in the way you're expecting. The The drive to the lake house took 4 hours through increasingly rural landscapes, city giving way to suburbs, giving way to small towns, giving way to the kind of wilderness that makes you remember how small you are. Maya sat in the passenger seat, scrolling through her phone, occasionally reading out messages from other guests about arrival times and what wine they were bringing. She hadn't mentioned Daniel once, which felt deliberate, like she was trying to normalize his presence by treating it as unremarkable. I kept my eyes on the road and my thoughts to myself. We'd loaded the car that morning with enough supplies for a small army. Maya had gone overboard at Whole Foods, filling cart after cart with organic produce and artisanal cheeses and wine that cost more per bottle than most people spent on groceries for a week. "I want everything to be perfect," she'd said, and I'd nodded and handed over my credit card and tried not to calculate the running total. The wedding was expensive enough. The ring had been expensive. The apartment we'd just signed a new lease on was expensive. And now, this vacation, which I was funding entirely. Despite Maya's job in HR at a tech company paying well enough that she could have contributed, was becoming another line item in the increasingly steep cost of our future together. But you don't think about money when you're in love. You don't calculate return on investment when you're building a life with someone. At least, that's what I'd told myself every time I'd swiped my card over the past few months. Now, watching Maya type out another message, probably to Daniel, based on the small smile playing at her lips, I wondered if maybe I should have been paying more attention to the balance sheet after all. "Daniel just left the city," Maya announced, confirming my suspicion. "He should get there around the same time as us." "Great," I said, my hands tightening on the steering wheel. "You're doing it again." "Doing what?" "That thing where you say something's fine, but your body language says you're tense." She put her phone down, turned to face me. "James, talk to me. If you're not okay with Daniel coming, we need to discuss it now, not let it poison the whole week." There was something almost gaslighting about this Maya, pushing me to voice objections she'd already dismissed, making my discomfort the problem rather than the situation causing it. But I bid back my frustration and tried to articulate something true. "I'm trying to understand why it matters so much to you that he's there," I said carefully. "That's all. It's not that I'm not okay with it. I am." I said yes, but I'm confused about why having your college ex-boyfriend at our pre-wedding vacation is so important. Maya was quiet for a moment, watching the trees blur past her window. When she spoke, her voice was softer, more vulnerable than it had been in weeks. "Daniel and I ended badly," she said. "Really badly. There were things said that we never got to take back, wounds that never healed properly. And for years I carried that around, this sense of unfinished business, of a relationship that ended wrong. She turned back to me. I want him to see that I'm happy now. That I found someone who loves me the way he couldn't. I want closure, James. Real closure. The kind you can only get by showing someone that you moved on and built something better." It sounded reasonable. It sounded like therapy speak, like something a person who'd done the work on themselves would say. It might have even been partly true. But it didn't explain. "Come to the lake house and find out," or "off paper is more complicated," or any of the other messages that suggested this was about more than closure. "Okay," I said, because what else could I say? "I understand." She reached over, squeezed my hand. "Thank you for being so understanding. It means everything to me." We drove the rest of the way in comfortable silence, or what passed for it. Maya dozed off somewhere around the 3rd hour, her head against the window, and I was left alone with my thoughts and the endless ribbon of highway and the growing sense that I was driving towards something I couldn't quite see yet, but could feel waiting for me at the end of this road. The lake house looked exactly as it always did, cedar and glass nestled among pine trees, the water beyond it mirror still in the late afternoon light. My parents had bought this place 30 years ago when it was just a modest cabin, had expanded and renovated it over decades until it became this, a sprawling multi-level retreat that had housed every important family gathering for as long as I could remember. My grandfather's funeral wake had been here. My brother's law school graduation party, my parents' 30th anniversary. And 6 months ago, my proposal to Maya, right there on that dock where a canoe was currently tied up, bobbing gently in the wake of some distant boat. I felt a pang of something, nostalgia, maybe, or grief for what this place had meant before it became the setting for whatever was about to unfold. It's so beautiful, Maya breathed. Awake now. We pulled into the gravel drive, started unloading bags and groceries. I was carrying the third box of supplies up the front steps when I heard the crunch of tires on gravel and turned to see a black Tesla pulling in behind my SUV. Daniel had arrived. He unfolded himself from the driver's seat, tall, maybe an inch or two taller than me, with that particular kind of casual elegance some men have, like they're always slightly underdressed for every occasion but somehow make it work. Dark hair with premature gray at the temples, expensive watch catching the sunlight, confident smile. "This must be the famous lake house," he called out, and his voice was smooth, practiced, the voice of someone accustomed to making good first impressions. Maya dropped the bag she was holding and practically ran to him. They hugged long enough that I noticed, not quite long enough that I could reasonably object. When they separated, Maya was glowing in a way I hadn't seen in months. "Daniel," she said, "this is James." He crossed the drive, hand extended. "James, great to finally meet you properly. Maya's told me so much about you." I shook his hand, registered the firm grip, the direct eye contact, the assessment happening behind his friendly expression. He was doing the same thing I was, taking measure, looking for weaknesses, understanding the competition. Because that's what this was, wasn't it? A competition. Maya had set this up, brought us both here, and now she was going to watch us circle each other like fighters in a ring she'd constructed. "Good to meet you, too," I said. "Maya's mentioned you're in consulting?" "Corporate strategy. Similar world to yours, I imagine." "Maya said you're in finance?" "Investment management." "Impressive." He said it like he meant it, but there was something underneath a subtext I couldn't quite read. "This place is incredible, by the way. You're lucky to have access to something like this." There it was, subtle, but there. You're lucky. As if my family's house, the place that represented decades of memories and meaning, was just a fortunate accident I'd stumbled into. As if the real thing being competed over Maya had nothing to do with luck and everything to do with what I could provide. "We like it," I said neutrally. "Come on, I'll show you to your room." I led him inside, Maya following, chattering about the drive and the weather and how excited she was for everyone to be here. The house smelled like cedar and lake water, and the particular must of places that sit empty most of the year. I'd been up here 2 weeks ago to open it up, turn on the water, make sure everything worked, but it still had that uninhabited quality, waiting to be filled with voices and laughter and life. Or, in this case, tension and subtext, and whatever the hell Maya thought she was orchestrating. "The green room is up here," I said, leading Daniel up the stairs. "Private bathroom, good view of the lake, should have everything you need." The green room was at the end of the hall named for the sage-colored walls my mother had painted 15 years ago, with white trim and a queen bed covered in a handmade quilt. The window did indeed look out over the water, and in the late afternoon light, you could see clear across to the far shore where more pine trees stood like sentinels. "This is perfect," Daniel said, setting his bag on the bed. "Really generous of you to include me in this. I know it might be awkward, given the history." He said it so smoothly, so reasonably, acknowledging the elephant in the room while simultaneously making it seem like no big deal. It was a good move, one I might have used myself in a similar situation. "Maya wanted you here," I said. "That's what matters." Still, not every guy would be cool with his fiancé's ex-boyfriend crashing the pre-wedding celebration. He smiled, but his eyes were sharp, watchful. "Shows a lot of confidence, a lot of trust." Was that admiration or mockery? I couldn't tell. Maybe it was both. "Maya and I trust each other," I said, and even as the words left my mouth, I wondered if they were true anymore. "That's good. Trust is everything." Daniel moved to the window, looked out at the lake. "She seems really happy, by the way. With you, with the wedding, with everything. You're a lucky guy." There was that word again. Lucky. Like my relationship with Maya was another fortunate accident, rather than something built on shared experiences and compatible goals and 2 years of choosing each other every day. Or had we been choosing each other? Maybe Maya had been choosing convenience while pining for what she'd lost with Daniel. Maybe I'd been choosing a fantasy while ignoring warning signs. "I'll let you get settled," I said. "Dinner's probably in a couple hours once everyone else arrives." I left him there and went back downstairs to find Maya in the kitchen, already unpacking groceries with the kind of focused energy she brought to all her projects. She looked up when I entered, smiled brightly. "What do you think?" "Of what?" "Of Daniel. Your first impression." I leaned against the counter, watched her arrange vegetables in the refrigerator. "He seems nice enough, confident, successful. I can see why you dated him." Her hand stilled for just a moment. "That's all? What else should there be?" "I don't know. I thought you might have more of a reaction. You've been so tense about him coming, and now that he's here, you're just calm. And..." She sounded almost disappointed, like she'd been expecting drama, confrontation, some kind of territorial display, like my measured response was somehow failing to give her what she needed. "Did you want me to be jealous?" I asked quietly. "No, of course not. She closed the refrigerator, turned to face me. "I want you to be honest about how you feel. If this is weird for you, say so." "It's weird," I admitted. "Having your ex-boyfriend sleeping down the hall is weird. But I'm managing, like I said I would." She crossed the room, wrapped her arms around me, pressed her face against my chest. "I love you," she said, muffled against my shirt. "I need you to know that. Whatever else happens this week, I love you. Whatever else happens." What did that mean? What was she expecting to happen? I held her and looked over her head at the kitchen, at the expensive groceries she'd bought with my money, at the lake house that belonged to my family, at the careful staging of this entire production, and felt something cold settle deeper into my chest. The others arrived in a steady stream over the next 2 hours. My parents first, my mother immediately pulling me aside to whisper, "Is he here?" with the kind of conspiratorial concern that would have been funny if the situation weren't so strange. "He's here," I confirmed. "Upstairs, settling in. How is it?" "Too early to tell." My brother Ryan arrived next. Alone, his girlfriend had to work and couldn't make it. He gave me a significant look as he carried his bags in, a silent communication that he was here, watching, ready to back me up in whatever came next. Then Maya's sister Claire and her husband Tom, bearing wine and stories about their toddler who they'd left with Tom's parents for the week. Mike and Sarah, old friends from college, cheerful and oblivious to any undercurrents. And finally Amanda, Maya's book club friend, who seemed slightly overwhelmed by the house and the gathering and kept apologizing for being there at all. "Maya insisted," she said to me as I showed her to her room. "I hope it's not an imposition." "Not at all," I assured her. "The more, the merrier," which was possibly the biggest lie I'd told all day. By the time everyone had settled in and changed and gathered on the back deck for drinks, the sun was starting its descent toward the tree line, painting the lake in shades of gold and rose. Someone had put music on something folksy and acoustic that drifted through the open doors. My father was manning the grill, cooking burgers and vegetables. My mother was arranging a cheese board with the kind of precision she usually reserved for her garden. It should have been perfect. It should have been exactly the kind of evening I'd imagined when we'd first planned this trip. Family and friends gathered in one of my favorite places on earth, celebrating the next chapter of my life. But then Daniel came down from his room, in fresh clothes and a smile, and Maya lit up like she'd been waiting for him all day, and I watched the two of them fall into easy conversation at the edge of the deck, their bodies angled toward each other in that particular way that speaks of history and intimacy and inside jokes. Ryan appeared at my elbow with a beer. "That him? That's him. Huh. What?" "Just observing, the way she looks at him." Ryan took a long pull from his beer. "Brother, I'm not going to tell you what to think, but I'm going to tell you what I see, which is your fiancée looking at another man the way she should be looking at you." I didn't respond, couldn't respond, because Ryan was right, and watching it was like feeling something tear slowly inside my chest. Maya laughed at something Daniel said, reached out and touched his arm. The gesture was casual, brief, could have meant nothing. But in context with everything I'd read, everything I suspected, it felt like a declaration. My mother appeared on my other side. "James, I know, Mom. Do you?" I turned to look at her, this woman who'd raised me, who'd taught me to trust my instincts and stand up for myself and never settle for less than I deserved. "I think so, but I need to be sure. I need to see it all play out. And if you don't like what you see, then I'll handle it." She studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. "We're here. Whatever you need. Your father and I, we're here." Dinner was strange. We sat at the long table on the deck, 10 of us arranged around wood and candles, and the food that Maya had spent the afternoon preparing with my mother's help. On paper, it was convivial. People talked and laughed and told stories. My father asked Daniel about his work. Claire gushed about the house. Tom made jokes about toddler tantrums. Amanda seemed to be relaxing, helped along by several glasses of wine. But underneath the surface conversation, I could feel the currents, could see the way Maya kept glancing at Daniel, checking his reactions, seeking his approval. Could notice how Daniel played the role of charming guest perfectly, complimenting the food and the house and making everyone laugh with well-timed anecdotes from his corporate strategy work. And I could see my brother watching them, my mother watching them, my father catching my eye across the table with a look that said he was seeing it too. The only people who seemed oblivious were the guests who didn't know the history: Mike and Sarah, Claire and Tom, Amanda. To them, this was just a fun vacation with friends, nothing more complicated than good food and good company. But for those of us who knew, who were paying attention, it was like watching a play unfold. And Maya was the director, orchestrating every scene, every interaction, building towards some climax only she knew was coming. After dinner, as people dispersed to play cards or walk by the lake or sit by the fire pit, I found myself alone on the dock. The water was black now, reflecting scattered stars and the lights from the house. A loon called somewhere across the lake, that haunting sound that always made me think of every summer I'd ever spent here. This was supposed to be the beginning of my married life. This was supposed to be celebration and joy and confidence in the future. Instead, I was standing on a dock trying to figure out if the woman I loved was using me, using this place, using this whole week to settle some old score or prove some point or figure out if she'd made the right choice 10 years ago. Footsteps on the dock behind me. I turned, expecting Ryan or my father. It was Daniel. "Beautiful night," he said, coming to stand beside me at the railing. "It usually is up here." We stood in silence for a moment. Then he said, "I want to be straight with you about something." My pulse quickened. "Okay." Maya and we had something real once, something intense. And when it ended badly, with a lot of hurt on both sides. He paused, seemed to be choosing his words carefully. "I don't know exactly why she wanted me here this week. But I'm not here to cause problems for you. I'm here because she asked, and because I wanted to see if there was anything left to salvage. Not romantically," he added quickly. "Just friendship, closure, whatever." "And is there?" I asked. "Anything left to salvage?" Daniel looked out at the water. "I don't know yet. Ask me again at the end of the week." He walked back toward the house, leaving me alone with the loons and the stars, and the growing certainty that this week was going to change everything. Just not in any way I'd anticipated. I didn't sleep well that first night. Maya lay beside me in the master suite, the room I'd insisted we keep, though now I wondered if fighting for it had been worth the small, cold victory. She'd fallen asleep quickly, her breathing evening out into the rhythm of someone without concerns, without guilt, without any awareness that the careful architecture of her plans might be visible to the person lying inches away. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the house settle around us. Old places make sounds, wood expanding and contracting, pipes groaning, the wind moving through spaces it shouldn't be able to reach. Normally I found it comforting, this symphony of age and memory. Tonight it felt ominous, like the house itself was warning me about something. Around 2 a.m, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Soft, cautious, trying not to wake anyone. Then the creak of the stairs. Someone going down to the kitchen, probably. I slipped out of bed carefully, pulled on sweatpants and a t-shirt, and followed. The kitchen was dark, except for the light over the sink. Daniel stood at the counter in pajama pants and a faded college t-shirt, making tea. He looked up when I entered, unsurprised, like he'd been expecting me. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked. "Too much on my mind." "Yeah, same." He poured hot water over a tea bag, and the smell of chamomile filled the space between us. "You want some?" "Sure." We moved around each other in the careful choreography of men who aren't quite friends, aren't quite enemies, but definitely aren't comfortable. He made my tea. I leaned against the opposite counter. We stood there in the semi-darkness, two people caught in someone else's story, trying to figure out our lines. "Can I ask you something?" Daniel said finally. "Go ahead." "Why did you say yes?" "To me, coming here, I mean. Most guys wouldn't." I considered lying, playing it cool, pretending this was all fine. But something about the late hour and the darkness and the fact that we were both here, awake and unsettled, made me choose honesty instead. "I wanted to see what she'd do," I said. "What you'd both do. I wanted to understand what this was really about." Daniel's eyebrows rose. "So you know that something's off?" "Yeah, I know." He was quiet for a moment, studying his tea like it held answers. "For what it's worth, I didn't come here to break up your engagement. I came because Maya asked, and because I'm an idiot who never quite got over her. But I'm not trying to steal someone else's fiancé. Aren't you, though?" I kept my voice level, not accusatory, just curious. "If she wanted you here to see if there's still something between you, and you came anyway, aren't you participating in whatever test this is?" "Maybe." He met my eyes. "But here's the thing. If Maya needs a test, if she needs to see me again, to know whether she wants to marry you, then you've already lost. Whether I'm here or not doesn't matter. The question already exists." He was right, and I hated him for it. Hated that he could articulate what I'd been feeling but hadn't wanted to face. Hated that he was standing in my family's kitchen at 2 a.m. being reasonable and insightful when I wanted him to be a villain I could simply eliminate from the equation. "Why'd you two break up?" I asked. "Originally, I mean." Daniel sighed, set down his tea. "We were young, stupid. I got scared of how intense it was. We were basically planning our whole lives together, senior year of college, and I panicked. Told her I needed space. Started seeing someone else almost immediately." He grimaced. "It was a shit thing to do. I was a shit person. And by the time I realized what I'd thrown away, she'd already left school, moved on with her life. I tried to reach out a few times over the years, but she never responded. Until last fall." "What happened last fall?" "She reached out to me, sent me a message on LinkedIn of all places, said she'd been thinking about the past, about us, about unfinished business. We met for coffee." "Then coffee turned into lunch. Then lunch turned into regular texts." He paused. "Then she told me she was engaged to you." The timeline clicked into place. Maya hadn't just reconnected with Daniel on a whim or run into him at a conference. She'd sought him out, deliberately, right around the time we got engaged. Which meant this whole thing had been orchestrated from the beginning, not a casual reunion, but a calculated move toward, what? Comparison? Insurance? A backup plan? "Did she tell you why?" I asked. "Why she reached out?" "She said she needed closure, that she'd never properly processed our breakup, that it had left her with trust issues and fear of commitment. She said talking to me might help her move forward with you." Daniel laughed bitterly. I was stupid enough to believe that was all it was, that I was performing some kind of therapeutic service, helping her heal so she could marry someone else. "But you don't believe that anymore?" "No, not after she invited me here. Not after the way she looked at me tonight at dinner." He rubbed his face, suddenly looking exhausted. "Look, James, I don't know what Maya wants. Maybe she wants me to fight for her. Maybe she wants to prove to herself that she's over me. Maybe she wants to make you jealous, or make me jealous, or create some kind of dramatic triangle that validates her worth. I don't fucking know. But you came anyway. I came anyway, he agreed. Because I'm weak, and she's always been my weakness, and some pathetic part of me hoped that maybe, just maybe, she actually wanted me back. We stood there in silence, two men in various states of humiliation, both caught in the orbit of a woman who seemed to be playing games neither of us fully understood. "What are you going to do?" Daniel asked finally. "I'm going to watch," I said. "I'm going to see how this plays out, and then I'm going to make a decision based on what I learn." "And if you don't like what you see?" I thought about the ring I'd bought, about the wedding invitations already sent, about the life we'd been building, the apartment lease, the joint accounts, the future we'd planned. Thought about how much it would hurt to walk away from all of that. Then I thought about the alternative, marrying someone who saw me as a practical choice, who needed to test her feelings against an old flame, to be sure, who would orchestrate something this manipulative and call it closure. "Then I'll end it," I said simply. "I'd rather be alone than be someone's backup plan." Daniel raised his tea mug in a mock toast. "To having standards. To having standards," I echoed. We finished our tea in silence, two competitors who'd somehow become temporary allies, united by the realization that we were both pieces in a game whose rules we didn't make. When we finally went back upstairs, the house was still dark, still quiet, still full of sleeping people who had no idea what currents were moving beneath the surface of this supposedly celebratory vacation. I slipped back into bed beside Maya. She stirred, reached for me in her sleep, murmured my name. Her hand found mine, fingers interlacing, and for a moment I let myself feel the familiar comfort of her touch. Then I remembered practical choices, and off paper is more complicated, and the fact that she'd orchestrated this entire week to prove something to herself, or to Daniel, or to me, using my family's house, and my money, and my trust as tools in whatever psychological game she was playing. And I pulled my hand away. Morning arrived with the kind of aggressive cheerfulness that only happens in nature birds, conducting symphonies outside the windows, sunlight streaming through gaps in curtains, the smell of pine and lake water drifting through screens. I woke before Maya, dressed quietly, and went downstairs to find my mother already up, making coffee in the kitchen. "Morning, honey," she said, studying my face with the particular X-ray vision mothers develop. "How'd you sleep?" "Not great." She handed me a mug of coffee, black the way I liked it. "Want to take a walk?" We went out to the dock, coffee steaming in the cool morning air. The lake was still, glass smooth, reflecting the pines on the far shore like a mirror. A family of ducks paddled past, leaving V-shaped ripples in their wake. "You talked to him," my mother said. "Not a question. Last night. In the kitchen." "And?" I told her about the conversation, about Daniel's admission that Maya had reached out to him, about the timeline that made it clear this wasn't some innocent coincidence but a deliberate orchestration. My mother listened, without interrupting, sipping her coffee, watching the ducks. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Your father and I had coffee with Maya yesterday morning," she said finally. "Before we drove up, she called us, asked if we could meet." I turned to look at her. "She did? Why?" "She wanted to talk about you, about the marriage, about whether we thought she was making the right decision." My mother's expression was carefully neutral, but I could see the concern beneath it. "She said she loved you very much, that you were everything she should want in a partner, but she kept using that word should, as if she was trying to convince herself." Something cold wrapped around my lungs. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that if she had doubts, she owed it to you and to herself to address them before the wedding. That marriage is hard enough without starting from a place of uncertainty." She paused. She didn't like that answer very much. "What did she say?" "She said she wasn't uncertain, just thoughtful. That she wanted to be sure she was marrying you for the right reasons, not just because you were safe and stable and checked all the boxes." My mother turned to face me fully. "James, I like Maya. I've always liked her. But I don't like what she's doing here. This week, inviting her ex-boyfriend, setting up this situation, it's not fair to you. And it suggests she's not ready to marry anyone." I felt something crack deeper in my chest. Hearing it from my mother, having her confirm what I'd been suspecting, made it real in a way it hadn't been before. "I know," I said quietly. "So what are you going to do?" "I don't know yet, but I'm not going to marry someone who sees me as the safe choice. Who needs to compare me to someone else to decide if I'm good enough?" My mother squeezed my hand. "Good. You deserve better than that. You deserve someone who chooses you without hesitation, who doesn't need tests and comparisons, who sees you and knows." We sat there as the sun climbed higher, burning off the morning mist, revealing the lake in all its early summer glory. In the distance, I could hear voices from the house, people waking up, starting their days, moving through the rituals of breakfast and coffee and planning activities. Ryan appeared on the deck, spotted us, and headed down to the dock with his own coffee. "Morning," he said, settling beside us. "Family meeting?" "Something like that," I said. "Good, because I have something to tell you, and you're not going to like it." I braced myself. "What?" I got up early, went for a run around the lake. When I came back, I saw Maya and Daniel on the back deck. They were talking. Close. He grimaced. She was crying. He was holding her hands. It looked intimate. My mother made a soft sound of distress. I felt nothing. Or maybe I felt everything, but it was so overwhelming, it translated into numbness. "Did you hear what they were saying?" I asked. "Some of it. I didn't want to get too close. But I heard Maya say something about what we had and what I'm about to give up, and Daniel saying, 'You don't have to give up anything. You have to choose.'" There it was. Confirmation. Maya wasn't here to get closure or prove she was over Daniel. She was here to figure out if she should be with him instead of me. She'd brought us both to this house, set up this elaborate comparison test, and now she was standing on my family's deck, crying to her ex-boyfriend about what she was about to give up, which apparently was him, not me. "I'm sorry, brother," Ryan said, "but you needed to know." "Yeah," I said. "I did." My mother stood abruptly. "That's enough. This has gone too far. I'm going to talk to her." "Mom, don't." I grabbed her arm gently. "Not yet. I need to see the rest of it. I need to see what she does. How far she's willing to take this. James, please, just a little longer. I need to know everything before I make any moves." She wanted to argue, I could see it in her face. But after a moment, she nodded. "Okay, but we're watching. All of us. And if this gets worse, if she hurts you more than she already has, I'm intervening. Understood?" "Understood." Ryan and I stayed on the dock after our mother went back to the house. We sat in silence, drinking coffee that had gone lukewarm, watching the lake wake up around us. "You know what you have to do, right?" Ryan said eventually. "End it." "End it," he confirmed. "But carefully. Because someone who would orchestrate something like this, who would manipulate you this way, they're not going to take rejection well. You need evidence. Documentation. Something that makes it clear this was her choice, her failure, not yours." He was right. In our world, the world of business and contracts and legal agreements, you always protected yourself, always had proof, always made sure that when a deal went bad, you could show exactly why and exactly whose fault it was. This was just another deal going bad. And I needed to document the failure. "What are you thinking?" Ryan asked, watching my face. "I'm thinking I need to record something." Or get her to admit something in writing? Or, I trailed off, an idea forming. What if I gave her what she seems to want? Space to be with Daniel, to test things out, to see if there's still something there. "You mean like set them up?" "Not set them up, just stop interfering, stop being present. Let her show me exactly what she's willing to do when she thinks I'm not watching." Ryan considered this. It's risky. What if she actually goes through with something? What if you see things you can't unsee? "Then I'll know for certain," I said, "and I'll have grounds to end this cleanly, without her being able to claim I was paranoid or controlling or that I didn't trust her, because she'll have proven that my instincts were right. Okay, Ryan said slowly. Okay, so what's the plan? We spent the next hour strategizing like we were planning a corporate takeover rather than documenting my relationship's collapse. Ryan would keep watching, being my eyes and ears when I couldn't be present. My parents would stay neutral but observant, and I would create opportunities for Maya and Daniel to be alone together, to show me what they'd do when they thought no one was watching. It felt calculating, manipulative, but Maya had set the terms of this engagement when she invited Daniel here. She'd created this game. I was just playing it better than she'd anticipated. By the time we went back to the house for breakfast, I had a plan. And by the end of the day, I'd have answers. One way or another, this week was going to show me exactly who Maya was and what our relationship really meant to her. I just hoped I was strong enough to handle the truth when it finally emerged. Breakfast was a production. Maya had gotten up early, must have been right after her deck conversation with Daniel, and made a spread that looked like something from a lifestyle magazine. French toast, fresh fruit, bacon, fancy coffee drinks. Everyone gathered around the big table, passing plates and complimenting the food and making plans for the day. Maya was animated, bright, playing the perfect hostess, but I noticed she barely looked at me, and every time Daniel spoke, her attention snapped to him like a compass finding north. I was thinking we could take the boats out today, I announced. Split into groups, explore the lake. There are some great coves on the far side. General enthusiasm greeted this suggestion. Maya started organizing people into boats, her in one with Daniel and Amanda and Claire, me in the other with Ryan and my parents and Tom and Mike and Sarah. I let her do it. Let her create the separation she clearly wanted. Let her put herself in a boat with Daniel while I took everyone else. Actually, I said casually, I need to take a work call this morning. Something came up with a client. Ryan, you mind captaining the second boat? Maya's head snapped toward me. Work? James, we agreed no work this week. It's just one call. An hour, tops. You guys go ahead without me. I'll catch up later. I could see the war on her face, relief that I'd be absent, irritation that I was breaking our no-work agreement, concern that it might look bad. But she couldn't object too strongly without revealing why she wanted me gone. Okay, she said finally. If you have to. I have to. But you all have fun. Maya, you'll take good care of everyone, right? Of course. They left an hour later, loaded into 2 boats with snacks and drinks and sunscreen. I watched from the deck as they pulled away from the dock, Maya and Daniel in the front of one boat, heads close together, talking about something I couldn't hear. Ryan caught my eye from the other boat, gave me a subtle nod. He'd keep watch. He'd see what happened. He'd be my witness. When they disappeared around the bend in the shoreline, I went inside, pulled out my laptop, and started doing exactly what I'd told them I would do, work. Because even if my personal life was imploding, even if my engagement was probably over, even if the woman I'd been planning to marry was currently on a boat with her ex-boyfriend figuring out if she'd rather be with him even with all of that, I still had a job, still had responsibilities, still had a life that would continue after this week ended and the debris settled and I figured out how to rebuild. And maybe that was the difference between me and Maya. I knew how to compartmentalize, how to function through pain, how to keep moving forward even when everything felt like it was falling apart. It was a useful skill. I was going to need it. They came back 3 hours later, sunburned and laughing, carrying the particular loose-limbed ease that comes from a day on the water. I watched from the kitchen window as they tied up the boats, watched Maya help Daniel out of the smaller craft, watched the way her hand lingered in his for just a moment too long. Ryan was the first one up to the house. He found me in my makeshift office, the small study off the living room, where my father used to do crossword puzzles on rainy days. You need to see something, he said quietly, pulling out his phone. The video was shaky, shot from inside the second boat while trying to look casual, but the audio was clear enough. Maya and Daniel in the other boat, maybe 30 feet away, thinking they were out of earshot, but not accounting for how sound carries over water. Can't keep doing this, Maya was saying. It's not fair to anyone. Then stop. Daniel's voice. Choose. Actually, choose. It's not that simple. It is that simple. You either want to marry James or you don't. You either feel the same way about me that you used to or you don't. Make a fucking decision, Maya. A long pause, the sound of water against the hull. Someone in Ryan's boat asking about sandwiches and Ryan shushing them. Then Maya again, quieter. What if I make the wrong choice? What if I marry James and spend the rest of my life wondering about us? Or what if I choose you and it falls apart again like it did before? That's the risk, Daniel said. That's what choice means. You can't have both of us. You can't hedge your bets forever. I know. I just thought coming here, having you both in the same place, I'd know. I'd feel something definitive that would make it clear. And do you? Feel something definitive? The video ended there. Ryan had run out of storage space on his phone. I set the phone down carefully on the desk, stared at it like it might suddenly offer different information, rewrite the conversation I'd just heard into something less damning. There's more, Ryan said. After lunch, they went for a walk, just the two of them. Said they were going to check out the old trail to the waterfall. They were gone for over an hour. Did you follow them? No, but James, when they came back, Maya's shirt was on inside out. I felt something crack, a clean break somewhere in my chest. You're sure? I'm sure the tag was showing, and they both had this look guilty, flushed, like they'd been caught doing something. I leaned back in the desk chair, closed my eyes, tried to process what I was hearing. My fiancée had just spent an hour alone in the woods with her ex-boyfriend and come back with her clothes disheveled. The implications were clear enough that I didn't need Ryan to spell them out. Okay, I said finally. Okay. That's it? Okay? What do you want me to say? I opened my eyes, looked at my brother. That I'm shocked? I'm not. That I'm hurt? I am, but I've been hurt since the moment she insisted on inviting him here. This is just confirmation. So what now? What? Now, I need more. I need something undeniable. Something she can't explain away or claim I'm misinterpreting. I stood up, paced to the window, and quoting, I brus'em, ruv'em, and quood, and quood, and quood. Looked out at the lake where my future had just shattered into pieces I'd probably never be able to put back together. I need her to show me exactly what she's willing to do, and I need it documented. Ryan was quiet for a moment. You know this is going to hurt like hell, right? Whatever you find, whatever you confirm, you're going to have to live with those images for the rest of your life. I know, but I'd rather live with the truth than build a marriage on lies and wondering. Wouldn't you? He nodded slowly. Yeah, I would. Okay, what do you need me to do? We spent the next hour planning. Ryan would stick close to them at dinner, see if he could record more conversations. My parents would keep the other guests occupied and distracted. And I would create an opportunity, announce that I needed to drive into town tomorrow morning, would be gone for a few hours, give Maya and Daniel space and time and privacy to show me what they really wanted. It felt like setting a trap, but Maya had built the cage when she invited Daniel here. I was just providing the bait. Dinner that night was tense, at least for those of us who knew what was really happening. Maya had made another elaborate meal. Grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, a salad with ingredients that probably cost more than most people spent on an entire dinner. She moved through the kitchen like she was performing, playing the role of perfect fiancée, devoted hostess, woman who had everything under control. But I noticed the looks, the way her eyes found Daniel across the room, the small smile that played at her lips when he complimented her cooking. The way she'd positioned herself at the table so she was directly across from him so they could maintain eye contact throughout the meal. I also noticed she'd barely touched me all day. No casual hand on my arm, no kiss hello when they got back from the boats, no attempt to include me in the stories about their lake adventure. It was like I'd already been erased, like she'd made her choice and was just going through the motions until she figured out how to tell me. This salmon is incredible, my mother said. And I could hear the forced brightness in her voice. The effort it took to maintain normalcy when she knew what I knew. Maya's an amazing cook, Daniel said. She always was. I remember junior year, she made this whole Thanksgiving dinner in our dorm kitchen. Turkey and everything. He'd said, as in their shared space, their shared history, their shared life that apparently still felt present tense even 10 years later. Maya laughed, delighted by the memory. Oh God, I'd forgotten about that. The RA was so mad about the smell. Worth it though. Definitely worth it. They were lost in it now, this private nostalgia that excluded everyone else at the table. My father cleared his throat loudly. Ryan kicked me under the table. And I just sat there, watching my fiancé fall back in love with someone else right in front of me, using memories I wasn't part of, building connection on a foundation I could never access. James, Amanda said, and I realized she'd been trying to get my attention. Maya said, "You proposed here, at the lake house?" I did. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Right out on that dock, sunset, loons calling. Very romantic. It was perfect, Maya said, and for the first time all evening, she looked at me directly. You made it perfect. But there was something in her eyes, regret, maybe, or guilt, or the dawning realization that perfect wasn't the same as right. Tell us about the wedding plans, Claire said, Maya's sister trying to redirect towards safer territory. Have you finalized everything? Maya brightened artificially. Almost. The venue's set, the caterers confirmed, invitations went out last month. We're having it at the Botanical Gardens, remember, Claire, where you took those engagement photos? That'll be beautiful. And the honeymoon? Italy, 2 weeks in Tuscany. Maya smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. James planned the whole thing. Because that's what I did. I planned. I organized. I made things happen. I was the one who handled logistics and details and all the practical elements of building a life together. But I wasn't the one who made her cry on the deck at dawn. I wasn't the one whose shirt tag she wore inside out after an hour in the woods. I wasn't the one she shared nostalgia with over dorm-cooked Thanksgiving turkeys. I was just the practical choice, the safe bet, the man who'd give her stability and security and a nice life that looked perfect on paper. And maybe, just maybe, I deserved better than that. After dinner, people scattered to their evening activities. My parents claimed exhaustion and went to bed early, though I suspected they just couldn't bear to watch this performance any longer. Tom and Claire and Mike and Sarah started a card game in the living room. Amanda joined them, grateful for the distraction, which left Maya and Daniel on the deck with drinks, alone in the darkness, speaking in low voices I couldn't quite make out from where I stood in the kitchen, pretending to clean up. Ryan appeared beside me. I can go out there. Break it up. No. Let them talk. Let her show me who she really is. Brother, I'm fine, Ryan. Really. I'm just done with all of it. With her, with this charade, with pretending everything's okay when it so clearly isn't. He squeezed my shoulder, then went to join the card game. I finished cleaning up alone, taking my time, listening to the murmur of voices from outside, the occasional laugh from Maya that cut through me like glass. When I finally went out to the deck, they were sitting close together on the porch swing, heads bent toward each other, completely absorbed in their conversation. They didn't notice me at first. Just afraid, Maya was saying, of making the wrong choice, of hurting people. You can't live your life afraid of hurting people, Daniel said. Sometimes hurt is inevitable. Sometimes being honest is the kindest thing you can do, even if it's painful. I know. You're right. They finally noticed me. Sprang apart like teenagers caught by parents. Maya's face flushed red, even in the darkness. Hey, she said brightly. Too brightly. We were just talking about. It's fine. I interrupted. I'm heading to bed. Long day tomorrow. I need to drive into town first thing. Handle some work stuff. I'll probably be gone most of the morning. I watched her face carefully. Saw the relief flash across it, quickly masked by concern. Work again? James, this is supposed to be vacation. I know, but this client issue can't wait. You understand. Of course. She stood, came over to me, kissed my cheek. It felt like a performance, a gesture for Daniel's benefit. Don't work too hard. I won't. You two have a good night. I left them there and went upstairs, where I texted Ryan. Tomorrow morning, early. I'm leaving. You know what to do. His response came immediately. Got it. And James, I'm sorry. Me too. I lay in bed waiting for Maya to come up. She took another hour, finally slipping into the room around midnight, smelling like wine and night air and guilt. You're still awake, she whispered. Couldn't sleep. She climbed into bed beside me, curled against my back. I'm sorry about the work stuff. I know this week is important. It is important. That's why I need to make sure this client thing is handled, so I can focus on us. On us? She repeated softly. James, do you ever wonder if we're making the right choice? Getting married, I mean. There it was. The question she'd probably been wanting to ask all week but hadn't found the courage until now, in the darkness, when she didn't have to look at my face. Sometimes, I said honestly. Do you? A long pause. Sometimes. And what do you do when you wonder? I remind myself of all the reasons we make sense together, all the ways we fit, all the things we've built. That's not an answer about feelings, Maya. That's a list of reasons. She was quiet for so long I thought she might not respond. Then, I know, we lay there in the darkness, two people in the same bed, already miles apart. And I knew this was probably the last honest conversation we'd have. Tomorrow I'd leave. Tomorrow I'd give her space to make her choice, and tomorrow she'd show me exactly what that choice was. I just had to be strong enough to face it. I left at 6 a.m, before anyone else was awake. Left a note on the kitchen counter saying I'd be back by early afternoon, that there was coffee ready and food in the fridge. Drove down the long gravel drive and onto the main road, heading not into town, but to a coffee shop about 30 minutes away, where I could wait and watch and receive updates from Ryan. The first text came at 8. They're up, having breakfast, very cozy. At 9, everyone else went for a hike. Maya said she had a headache. Staying back. Daniel staying too. Said he wanted to finish a book. At 9:30, they're on the deck, talking. She's crying again. At 10, they went inside. Can't see them anymore. At 10:15, James, I'm sorry. They're in the master suite. Doors closed. I stared at that text for a long time. Sat in the coffee shop parking lot with cold coffee and the sound of traffic on the highway and the complete destruction of the future I'd been planning. The master suite, our room, the room where I'd proposed, the bed we'd been sleeping in all week. She'd taken him there. My phone buzzed again. I'm recording audio, just in case you need it, but you don't have to listen if you don't want to. I didn't want to. God, I didn't want to. Every instinct told me to drive away, to spare myself the details, to let the fact of the betrayal be enough without knowing the specifics. But I'd come this far. I'd set this in motion. And I needed the evidence not just for closure, but for protection. Because when I ended this, when I walked away from Maya and our engagement and the life we'd been building, I needed to be absolutely certain I could articulate why. I needed to know I wasn't giving up on something salvageable. Send it, I texted back. The audio file came through a minute later. I sat there for another 5 minutes before I found the courage to press play. The recording was muffled. Ryan must have left his phone on the dresser in his room, which shared a wall with the master suite. But the voices were clear enough. Painfully clear. Can't keep doing this. Maya's voice, thick with emotion. We have to stop. Then tell him. Daniel's voice. End it. Be with me. It's not that simple. It is that simple. You don't love him the way you love me. You never have. He's safe. He's stable. He's everything you think you should want. But he's not what you actually want. Silence. Then Maya, so quietly, I almost couldn't hear. No, he's not. So end it. And then what? We try again? What if it doesn't work? What if we fail again like we did before? Then we fail. But at least we tried. At least we didn't spend the rest of our lives wondering, what if? More silence. The The sound of movement. Then Maya again. If we do this, if I do this, I need to know you're sure, that you're not going to get scared and run away again. I'm not 22 anymore, Maya. I know what I lost. I know what I want, and I want you. I've always wanted you. The sound of kissing, unmistakable. And then Maya, breathless. We shouldn't. Not here. Not in his bed. Then let's go somewhere else. There are 9 other bedrooms in this house. Laughter. Maya's laugh, the one I used to think, meant she was happy with me. You're terrible. You love it. I do. God help me, I do. The recording ended there. Ryan must have stopped it, unable to listen to more. Or maybe he'd heard enough to know what was coming next, what was already happening. I sat in the coffee shop parking lot and felt nothing. No rage, no heartbreak, no devastating pain, just a strange, hollow emptiness where my future used to be. Then, slowly, something else emerged. Not anger exactly, but something colder, clearer, more purposeful. Maya wanted to make a choice? Fine. She'd made one. Now it was my turn. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. First to my lawyer, a family friend who specialized in contract law and had helped me with various agreements over the years. I need you to draw up something for me. Today, if possible. Yes, I know it's Saturday. I'll pay whatever it costs. Then to the wedding venue. I need to cancel. Yes, all of it. Yes, I understand about the deposit. That's fine. Then to my bank. I need to freeze all joint accounts. Yes, effective immediately. Call after call. Methodical. Systematic. Dismantling the architecture of our shared life with the same careful attention to detail I'd used to build it. When I finished, I sat for a moment more, letting the magnitude of what I'd just done settle over me. Then I drove back to the lake house. It was time to end this. I pulled into the gravel drive at 1:30 in the afternoon. The house looked peaceful in the midday sun, all cedar and glass, and the illusion of a perfect vacation still unfolding inside. The boats bobbed at the dock. Someone had left a towel draped over the deck railing to dry. Birds sang in the pine trees like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. I sat in the car for a moment, hands on the steering wheel, breathing slowly, preparing myself for what came next. Because there was a difference between knowing the truth and confronting it, between suspecting and having proof, between deciding to end something and actually doing it. Ryan appeared on the front porch, must have been watching for me. He came down to the car, leaned in through the window I'd rolled down. Everyone's back from the hike, he said quietly. They're all down at the beach. Maya and Daniel are up in. They're upstairs, together, still. How long? 3 hours, give or take. He paused. I'm sorry, James. I know this is. Where are Mom and Dad? Keeping everyone occupied, making sure no one comes back up to the house. They know you're coming. They're ready to back whatever play you make. I nodded, opened the car door, stepped out. The gravel crunched under my feet. Somewhere on the lake, someone was operating a jet ski, the high whine of the engine carrying across the water. You want me to come with you? Ryan asked. No, this is something I need to do alone. He gripped my shoulder once, hard, then stepped back. I walked up to the house, through the front door, into the sudden cool dimness of the interior. The living room was empty. The kitchen, pristine Maya, must have cleaned up after breakfast, performing domestic perfection even as she betrayed me upstairs. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step deliberate. My heart was beating fast, but steady. No panic, no rage, just a cold, clear certainty about what needed to happen next. The master suite door was closed. I stood outside it for a moment, listening. Heard low voices, intimate laughter, the rustle of sheets. Then I opened the door without knocking. They were in the bed, my family's bed, the bed I'd slept in as a child during summer visits, the bed where I'd proposed to Maya 6 months ago. They'd at least had the decency to pull the sheets up, but the evidence was clear enough. Clothes scattered on the floor, Maya's hair mussed, Daniel shirtless. The particular atmosphere of a room where people had just been intimate. Maya's face went white. "James, get out," I said to Daniel, my voice calm, eerily calm. "Get dressed and get out of this room. Now." "James, let me explain," Maya started. "I'm not talking to you yet." I cut her off. "Daniel, out." To his credit, Daniel moved quickly, grabbed his clothes, pulled on pants and a shirt while maintaining eye contact with me, like he was assessing whether I was about to attack him. I watched him with that same strange detachment, noting details, the way his hands shook slightly, the guilt in his expression, the fact that he kept glancing at Maya like he needed her permission to leave her alone with me. "I'm sorry," he said as he headed for the door. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry." "You're not sorry for what you did," I said quietly. "You're sorry you got caught. There's a difference." He paused in the doorway, seemed about to say something else, then thought better of it and left. His footsteps echoed down the hallway. A door closed somewhere, probably the green room he was supposed to be staying in, the room that apparently hadn't been adequate for whatever reconciliation he and Maya had been conducting all week. I closed the master suite door, turned back to Maya. She was sitting up in bed now, sheet clutched to her chest, mascara smudged under her eyes. She looked young suddenly, and frightened, and nothing like the confident woman who'd insisted on inviting her ex-boyfriend to our pre-wedding vacation. "I can explain," she whispered. "No," I said. "You can't. There's no explanation that makes this okay. But you're going to tell me anyway. You're going to tell me the truth, all of it, because you owe me that much." "James, please." "How long?" I interrupted. "How long have you been sleeping with him?" "I haven't." This was the first code. "Don't lie to me. Not now. Not after everything. I know you reached out to him last fall. I know you've been messaging him daily for months. I know you invited him here specifically to figure out if you wanted to be with him instead of me. So I'll ask you again. How long have you been sleeping with him?" Her face crumpled. "Today was the first time. I swear. We kissed yesterday on the hike. But today was..." She stopped, maybe realizing that distinguishing between kissing and sex wasn't actually making this better. "Why?" I asked, and some of the detachment cracked, letting pain seep through. "Why couldn't you just end it with me first? Why did you have to do it this way, in my family's house, in this bed?" "I didn't plan this," she said, tears streaming now. "I didn't come here intending to sleep with him. I just wanted to see him again, to figure out what I was feeling." By bringing him to our pre-wedding vacation, by sleeping in this room with me all week while texting him, meeting him for private walks, crying on his shoulder at dawn. My voice was still calm, but I could hear the edge creeping in. "You didn't just want to see him, Maya. You wanted to compare us. You wanted to have us both here so you could decide which one you wanted more. That's not." "It is. Don't insult me by denying it now." I heard the recording. She froze. "What recording?" "The one my brother made this morning. Of you and Daniel in this room. Of you telling him you don't love me the way you love him. That I'm safe and stable and everything you think you should want, but not what you actually want." I pulled out my phone, held it up. "Want to hear it? Refresh your memory about exactly what you said?" "Oh God." She put her face in her hands. "Oh God, James, I'm so sorry." "Sorry you said it? Or sorry I found out?" "Both. Neither. I don't know." She looked up at me, face ravaged with tears. "I'm so confused. I love you, James. I do love you." But when I saw Daniel again, when we started talking, I realized I'd never really gotten over him. That part of me was still stuck back in college, still wondering what if. And I thought maybe if I saw you both together in the same place, I'd know for certain who I wanted to be with. "And do you know for certain?" "No." She was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. That's the truth. I genuinely don't know." The honesty of it, the raw, devastating honesty, was somehow worse than a lie would have been, because it meant I'd spent 2 years building a life with someone who'd never been completely sure about me, who'd been with me while some part of her was always elsewhere, always wondering, always comparing me to a ghost from her past. "Well," I said quietly, "I know. I know that I don't want to marry someone who sees me as the safe choice, who needs to sleep with their ex to decide if I'm good enough. Who would humiliate me this way in my family's home, with all our friends and family here because they couldn't be bothered to make a clean choice before destroying everything?" "James, please, don't make any decisions right now. You're angry. You have every right to be angry, but don't throw away 2 years because of one mistake." "One mistake?" I laughed, and it came out bitter. "Maya, this wasn't one mistake. This was months of lies and manipulation. This was inviting your ex to our pre-wedding vacation. This was sleeping with him in the bed where I proposed to you. This was—" my voice broke. "This was you showing me exactly what our relationship means to you. And I'm finally listening." "So what?" she said, and now there was anger mixing with the tears. "You're just going to end it? Walk away? What about the wedding? What about all the plans we made?" "I canceled the wedding," I said, "this morning, while you were up here with Daniel. I called the venue, the caterer, everyone. It's done." Her face went slack with shock. "You what?" "I canceled it, and I froze our joint accounts, and I contacted my lawyer about dissolving any shared assets. Because I knew, Maya, before I even came back here, I knew what I'd find. And I decided I'd rather end this cleanly now than spend the next 50 years wondering if you're thinking about him, wondering if I'm enough, wondering if you're staying with me because you love me or because leaving would be too complicated. You can't just decide this alone." "I'm not deciding alone. You decided. When you brought Daniel here, when you slept with him, when you told him I'm not what you actually want." I moved toward the door, needed to get out of this room, away from her, before the numbness wore off and the real pain set in. "We're done, Maya. I'll help you pack your things. You and Daniel can leave today. I'll stay here with my family and spend the rest of the week figuring out how to untangle our lives. James, wait. There's nothing else to say. We both know this has been over for a while. Today just made it official." I opened the door, started to leave, then turned back one more time. "For what it's worth," I said, "I did love you. Completely. Without reservation. Without comparing you to anyone else. Without needing tests or proof or validation. I was all in, Maya. And you were always halfway out the door. So maybe Daniel's right. Maybe he is what you actually want. I hope he makes you happy, James." But I was already gone, pulling the door shut behind me, walking down the hallway on legs that felt disconnected from my body. I made it to the bathroom, locked the door, and finally let myself feel it. The crushing weight of betrayal, the sharp edges of humiliation, the deep ache of a future suddenly deleted. I gripped the sink and breathed through it. Didn't cry. Couldn't cry yet. That would come later, when I was alone and safe, and didn't have to perform strength for anyone. For now, I just had to get through the next few hours. Had to tell everyone what happened. Had to watch Maya and Daniel pack their things and leave. Had to begin the work of grieving what I'd lost and building something new from the wreckage. A knock on the bathroom door. "James," my mother's voice. "Can I come in?" I unlocked the door. She slipped inside, took one look at my face, and pulled me into her arms. And there, with my mother holding me like I was still a child who needed comfort, I finally let myself break a little. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you did the right thing, the brave thing." "Then why does it hurt so much?" "Because you loved her. And love doesn't just disappear because someone betrays it. You're grieving what you thought you had, what you hoped you'd have. That's normal. That's human." We stood there for a long moment. Then I pulled back, wiped my face, looked at my mother. "I need you to help me do something. Anything. I need everyone to know what happened. Not gossip, not drama, just the truth. Because Maya's going to try to control the narrative. She's going to make this about me being controlling or not trusting her or overreacting. and I need people to know that's not what happened." My mother's expression hardened. "Consider it done. Your father and I will handle it. You go downstairs and wait. We'll bring everyone up from the beach and have a family meeting." 20 minutes later, everyone was gathered in the living room. My parents had told them only that there was an urgent situation that needed to be addressed. Maya sat on one end of the couch, Daniel beside her, both of them looking shell-shocked. Ryan stood near the fireplace, arms crossed. Claire and Tom perched on ottoman chairs, confused and concerned. Mike and Sarah and Amanda clustered together near the window. I stood in front of the fireplace and told them everything. Not angrily, not with drama or accusation, just the facts, laid out clearly and calmly. Maya had reconnected with Daniel months ago. She'd invited him here to compare us. I'd discovered her intentions and created space to see what she'd do. She'd chosen to sleep with Daniel in the master suite this morning while I was gone. The room was dead silent when I finished. "So Maya and Daniel will be leaving today," I concluded. "The wedding is canceled. I'm sorry to those of you who took time off work or made travel plans. I'll reimburse any expenses you incurred, but the rest of you are welcome to stay the week if you'd like. This house is still meant for family and friends, and you're still my family and friends." Claire was crying. Mike looked furious. Sarah had her hand over her mouth in shock. Amanda just looked uncomfortable, like she wanted to disappear. "Maya," Claire said finally, her voice small, "is this true?" Maya looked at her sister, at all of us, and seemed to realize that denial wasn't an option. "Yes," she whispered, "it's true, but it's not. It's more complicated than—" "It's not complicated," I interrupted gently. "You made a choice. That's your right. But there are consequences, and one of those consequences is that our relationship is over." "James, please," she tried again. "Can't we talk about this privately?" We had our private talk. Now everyone deserves to know why their vacation just became extremely awkward. I turned to Daniel. "I'd appreciate it if you could both pack quickly and be on the road within the hour." "Of course," Daniel said quietly. He stood, put his hand on Maya's shoulder. "Come on, let's give them their space." They left the room. We heard them climbing the stairs, heard the sounds of hurried packing. No one in the living room spoke. Finally, Ryan broke the silence. "Anyone need a drink? Because I need a drink." "I'll help," my father said, and they disappeared into the kitchen. My mother came over, hugged me hard. "You did well, honey. I know that was difficult." "I keep expecting to feel something," I said quietly. "Rage, or devastation, or relief, but I just feel empty." "That's shock. The feelings will come later, and when they do, you let yourself feel them. All of them. Don't be strong for anyone else's sake." We stayed like that for a while, my mother holding me, the rest of the group gradually dispersing to give us privacy. Through the window, I could see the lake, still and beautiful, indifferent to the human drama unfolding on its shores. 45 minutes later, Maya and Daniel came downstairs with their bags. Everyone had reconvened in the living room, though now it felt more like a wake than a vacation gathering. Maya stood at the bottom of the stairs, looking at me. "I really am sorry, James, for all of it. You deserved better." "Yes," I said simply. "I did." She flinched like I'd hit her. But she didn't argue, just turned and walked out the door, Daniel following with their bags. We listened to the car doors slam, the engine start, the crunch of gravel as they pulled away down the long driveway. Then they were gone, and I was standing in my family's living room, surrounded by people who loved me, staring at the empty space where my future used to be. "Okay," I said finally, my voice sounding distant, even to my own ears. "Who wants to go for a swim?" Because what else was there to do? The world had just rearranged itself in fundamental ways, but the sun was still shining, and the lake was still beautiful, and life was going to continue whether I was ready for it or not. Might as well learn to swim in the wreckage. The house felt different after they left, lighter in some ways, heavier in others, like the removal of their presence had created a vacuum that we were all trying to figure out how to fill. No one took me up on the swimming offer. Instead, people drifted into their own processing patterns. Claire and Tom went for a walk along the shore, heads bent close in conversation. Mike and Sarah retreated to their room, probably trying to make sense of what they'd just witnessed. Amanda, clearly uncomfortable about being present for such an intimate family catastrophe, started making noises about leaving early, too. "Please don't," I told her. "This isn't your fault, and you shouldn't have to cut your vacation short because Maya made terrible choices." She stayed, though I could tell she felt like an intruder in someone else's grief. My parents and Ryan formed a protective circle around me. We sat on the deck with beers we weren't really drinking, watching the afternoon light stretch across the water, not saying much because there wasn't much to say. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't inspire eloquence. It just sits there, heavy and indigestible, demanding to be witnessed, but offering no wisdom in return. "You want to talk about it?" Ryan asked eventually. "Not really." "You want to sit here in silence?" "Yeah, I think I do." So we did. We sat and watched the lake and breathed through the strange, hollow feeling of having your life rearrange itself in the space of a few hours. Of going from engaged to single, from planning a wedding to canceling one, from believing in a shared future to watching it dissolve like sugar in water. Around 6, my mother went inside to make dinner. I heard her in the kitchen, moving with the purposeful energy of someone who needed to do something concrete, something with measurable outcomes. Chop vegetables. Boil pasta. Create nourishment from raw ingredients. Small acts of care when larger acts were impossible. My father stayed on the deck with me. He wasn't a particularly verbose man, never had been. But after a while, he reached over and squeezed my shoulder once, hard, and said, "You'll get through this. I know. And you'll come out better for it. Stronger." "Will I?" "Yes, because you already showed strength today. You could have ignored what you knew, married her anyway, spent years in doubt and resentment. But you didn't. You chose truth over comfort. That takes courage." I wanted to believe him, wanted to think that this pain had meaning, that it was building towards something better rather than just being senseless destruction. But right then, it just hurt. Dinner was quiet. My mother had made a simple pasta with garlic and olive oil, served with salad and bread. Comfort food. We ate at the dining table, the same table where we'd all shared dinner just last night, when Maya had been here pretending everything was fine while already planning to betray me. The memory of it made the food taste like ash. "I have to ask," Claire said suddenly, breaking the silence. "How long did you know that something was wrong?" "A few weeks," I admitted. "Since she first told me she wanted to invite Daniel, I knew immediately that it was strange. But I tried to convince myself I was being paranoid. Why didn't you just tell her no?" "Because I wanted to trust her, and because part of me needed to know the truth, needed to see what she'd do when given the opportunity." I pushed pasta around on my plate. "I guess I got my answer." "I'm so sorry," Claire said, tears in her eyes. "I had no idea. If I'd known what she was planning." "It's not your fault. Maya made her choices. She's responsible for them, no one else." But I could see the guilt on Claire's face. The particular shame that comes from being related to someone who's hurt, someone you care about. Tom put his arm around her, pulled her close. "For what it's worth," Tom said, "I always thought you were too good for her." "Tom," Claire swatted at him, but there was no real anger in it. "What?" "I did. James is steady, reliable, decent. Maya was always a little." He searched for the word. "Restless." Like she was looking for something she couldn't name and wouldn't recognize, even if she found it. It was an astute observation, more astute than I'd given Tom credit for, honestly, because that was exactly what Maya was, restless. Always looking for the next thing, the better thing, the thing that would finally make her feel complete. I'd thought I was that thing. Turned out I was just another stop on her endless search. "She called me last month," Claire said quietly. "Asked me if I thought she should go through with the wedding. I told her of course she should, that cold feet were normal, that James was a good man who loved her. I thought I was helping." "You were," I assured her. You gave her honest advice. What she did with it isn't on you. We finished dinner in subdued conversation. Afterward, people dispersed again to their rooms, to the fire pit outside, to the dock where stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky, the rituals of evening continuing despite the rupture in the center of them. I found myself alone in the living room, staring at the bookshelf where my grandfather's old novels were still shelved, their spines cracked and faded from decades of summer reading. This room had held so many memories: Christmas mornings, birthday celebrations, family game nights. It had been a place of happiness. Now it would also be the place where my engagement ended, where I'd stood in front of everyone I cared about and announced that the woman I'd planned to marry had betrayed me. It would carry that memory too now, layered over all the others like sediment. Ryan found me there. Hey, Mike and Sarah are leaving tomorrow morning. They said they feel weird staying after everything that happened. That's fine. I understand. Amanda wants to stay, though. Said something about wanting to support you, since Maya was supposed to be her friend and clearly wasn't much of one. That surprised me. She doesn't have to do that. I think she wants to. Also, I think she's genuinely enjoying the lake house now that the tension is gone. Can't blame her. He paused. Mom made up the guest room on the 3rd floor for you. Said you probably don't want to sleep in the master suite tonight. The thought of going back to that room, to that bed, made my stomach turn. Yeah, good call. You want company? I can sleep on the floor, be your emotional support, brother. Despite everything, I smiled. I'm okay, but thanks. All right, but I'm right across the hall if you need anything. And by anything, I mean if you want to get drunk and rage about what a piece of shit she was, I'm available for that. She wasn't a piece of shit, I said quietly. She was just confused and selfish and not ready to commit to anyone, which in this context kind of makes her a piece of shit. Fair enough. He left me alone with my thoughts and the books and the slowly settling realization that I was going to have to rebuild my entire life. The apartment we'd just signed a new lease on, I'd have to break it or find a new roommate. The wedding gifts people had already sent, I'd have to return them. The Italy trip, cancel it or go alone, or find a friend to come with me. All those plans, all those arrangements, all those small commitments that had seemed like building blocks of a future, now they were just obstacles to untangle, problems to solve, evidence of optimism that had been misplaced. I pulled out my phone, opened my photos, scrolled back through the past 2 years, Maya laughing at a restaurant, Maya on the beach in Mexico, Maya at my company holiday party in a red dress, Maya the morning after I proposed with tears of joy streaming down her face. Had those tears been real? Had any of it been real? Or had she been performing the whole time, playing the role of devoted girlfriend, while part of her was always elsewhere, always with Daniel, always wondering, what if? I'd probably never know, and maybe it didn't matter. What mattered was that it was over now, and I had to figure out how to be okay with that. I slept poorly in the 3rd floor guest room. It was smaller than the master suite, with a twin bed and a window that looked out over the pine trees instead of the lake. I could hear every sound the house made, creaks and groans, and the wind pushing against the roof, and underneath it all, the relentless replay of the day's events. Maya's face when I opened the door, Daniel pulling on his pants, the recording of her saying I wasn't what she actually wanted, the look on Claire's face when she realized what her sister had done, the sound of gravel as they drove away. Around 3 a.m, I gave up on sleep and went downstairs. Found my mother in the kitchen, also awake, also unable to rest. Couldn't sleep either, she asked, putting on a kettle for tea. Too much in my head. That's normal. Your brain is trying to process trauma. It'll take time. We sat at the kitchen table with chamomile tea and the companionable silence of 2 people who'd been through something difficult together. My mother had this way of being present, without demanding anything. No forced conversation, no therapeutic platitudes. Just solid, quiet support. Can I ask you something? I said eventually. Of course. Did you ever like her? Maya, I mean. Really like her? My mother considered this carefully. I liked the version of her that made you happy. When you two first got together, you seemed lighter, more joyful, She brought something out in you that I hadn't seen in a while. So yes, I liked that version of her. And the other version? The one who just slept with her ex-boyfriend in your family's bed? My mother's voice was sharp now. No, James. I don't like that version at all. And I'm beginning to think that version was there all along, and we just didn't see it because we wanted you to be happy. I was happy. For a while. I know you were. But happiness built on someone else's uncertainty isn't sustainable. Eventually, the foundation cracks. We drank our tea. Outside, a loon called across the lake. That haunting sound that had defined every summer of my life. It used to make me feel peaceful. Tonight, it just sounded lonely. Your father and I are going to stay the rest of the week, my mother said. We're not leaving you here to deal with this alone. You don't have to do that. We know. We want to. She reached across the table, covered my hand with hers. You're our son. When you hurt, we hurt. And when you need support, we're here. That's what family means. I felt something crack in my chest, the armor I'd been wearing all day, the numbness I'd been using to survive. Tears came suddenly, unexpectedly, and I put my head down on the table and let them. My mother moved her chair close, put her arm around my shoulders, and let me cry. Didn't tell me it would be okay or that I'd find someone better or any of the things people say when they don't know what else to offer. She just held me while I grieved what I'd lost and what I'd never actually had. After a while, the tears stopped. I lifted my head, wiped my face with the napkin my mother handed me. Sorry, I said. Don't be sorry for having feelings, James. That's healthy. What's unhealthy is pretending you're fine when you're not. I keep thinking about all the signs I missed, or ignored, or explained away because I wanted to believe in us. That's not weakness. That's love. You loved her, so you gave her the benefit of the doubt. That's what we're supposed to do in relationships. And when does giving someone the benefit of the doubt become being willfully blind? I don't know, my mother admitted. That's the hard part. But I do know this. You weren't blind. You saw the warning signs. You investigated. You gave her space to show you who she really was. And when she showed you, you believed her. That's wisdom, not blindness. I wanted to believe that. Wanted to think that I'd handled this with maturity and strength, rather than being a fool who'd been played. But the line between wisdom and foolishness felt very thin right now. Morning came, eventually, as it always does. I watched the sun rise from the third-floor window, painting the lake in shades of gold and rose, making everything look new and hopeful in that way dawn has of lying to you about what the day will actually bring. By 7, the house was stirring. I heard footsteps, voices, the sounds of coffee being made, and breakfast being prepared. I showered, changed into clean clothes, and went downstairs to face another day in the wreckage of my former life. Mike and Sarah were already packed, standing in the entryway with their bags looking guilty about leaving. We're really sorry, Sarah said, hugging me. This feels like abandoning you. But it's fine, I assured her. You both have jobs to get back to. I appreciate you coming at all. If you need anything, Mike said, gripping my hand hard, you call us. We're always here for you. They left, and the house felt a little emptier, but also a little less obligated to perform normalcy. Claire and Tom were staying, they announced. Family sticks together, Claire said firmly, though I could see the guilt still eating at her about her sister's actions. Amanda was staying too. If you'll have me, she said. I know I'm not really part of the family, but you're welcome here, I told her. Anyone Maya called a friend is probably a good person she didn't deserve. That got a small smile. So the reduced group, me, my parents, Ryan, Claire, and Tom, and Amanda, settled into a new rhythm. Quieter than before, less performative, more genuine. We spent the day doing ordinary things, swimming in the lake, reading on the deck, making sandwiches for lunch, playing cards in the afternoon while rain pattered on the roof. And slowly, very slowly, I started to feel something other than numbness. Not happiness exactly, but a kind of peace. The peace that comes from knowing the truth, even when the truth is painful. From being surrounded by people who loved me without conditions or tests. From understanding that I'd made the right choice, even if it was the hard one. That evening, as we all sat around the fire pit, watching flames dance against the darkening sky, Ryan raised his beer bottle. "A toast," he announced, "to James, for having the balls to walk away from someone who didn't deserve him." "To James," everyone echoed, raising their drinks. "And to new beginnings," my mother added, "because every ending is also a beginning, even when we can't see it yet." "To new beginnings," we all said. I sat there with my family and friends, watching sparks rise into the night sky, and thought about what my mother had said. New beginnings. I couldn't see mine yet, couldn't imagine what my life would look like without Maya in it, without the wedding plans and the shared apartment and all the architecture of our coupled future. But I could feel it waiting for me somewhere out there in the darkness, a life that would be mine alone to build, a future that didn't require anyone else's validation or comparison or uncertainty, and maybe, eventually, that would be enough. Maybe it would even be better. The next 2 days passed in a strange kind of limbo. We fell into a routine morning coffee on the deck, lazy afternoons by the water, evening meals that felt more like family dinners than vacation gatherings. The cloud of what had happened still hung over everything, but it was dissipating slowly, letting in patches of normalcy. I was getting better at not checking my phone every 5 minutes to see if Maya had texted. She hadn't. Radio silence since she'd driven away with Daniel, which was probably for the best. What was there to say that hadn't already been said? On the third morning after the confrontation, I woke to find my phone had dozens of missed calls and texts, all from numbers I didn't recognize, plus several from colleagues at work, and a handful from distant relatives I hadn't spoken to in months. My stomach dropped. Something had happened. Something big enough that people were trying to reach me urgently. I opened the first text from a work colleague. "Hey man, I'm so sorry. Just saw the post. If you need anything." "What post?" I scrolled through the other messages. Similar sentiments, condolences, offers of support. People saying they couldn't believe it, that Maya seemed so nice, that they were shocked. Ryan appeared in my doorway, still in pajamas, holding his phone. "You've seen it?" "Seen what?" "Maya posted something on Instagram. You need to see it." He handed me his phone. Maya's Instagram was open, showing a post from late last night. The photo was of her and Daniel, sitting on what looked like a hotel balcony, sunset behind them, holding hands. They looked happy, peaceful, like they'd found their way back to each other after years apart. But it was the caption that made my blood run cold. Sometimes the universe gives you a second chance at something you thought you'd lost forever. Daniel and I broke up 10 years ago, and I've spent the last decade trying to fill the void he left. I got engaged to someone wonderful, someone who deserved better than someone still carrying old wounds. James is a good man, the best, really, but he wasn't my person, and I wasn't his, and pretending otherwise would have been unfair to both of us. I'm grateful James and I had the courage to end things before making a mistake we'd both regret. Sometimes love isn't enough if it's not the right love. I wish James nothing but happiness as he finds someone who can love him the way he deserves. As for Daniel and me, we're taking things slow, figuring out if we can make it work this time. But being with him feels like coming home after a long time away, like finding a piece of myself I'd forgotten existed. To anyone going through something similar, trust your gut. Don't marry someone because they check boxes, or because it's the right time, or because you're afraid of being alone. Marry someone because you can't imagine your life without them. Because they're your person, no conditions, no doubts. Thank you for understanding. The post had thousands of likes, hundreds of comments, mostly supportive, telling her how brave she was, how important it was to follow your heart, how lucky she was to get a second chance with her soulmate. A few dissenting voices pointed out that she'd been engaged to someone else just days ago, but they were drowned out by the chorus of approval. I handed the phone back to Ryan, my hands shaking with something I couldn't quite name. Rage, humiliation, disbelief. She made herself the hero, I said quietly. She made it sound like we mutually decided to end things, like it was some mature, conscious uncoupling, instead of her cheating on me in my family's bed. Yeah, Ryan said grimly. She's rewriting history, and because she got there first with her version, that's the version everyone's going to believe. I sat down on the edge of the bed, tried to breathe through the fury building in my chest. She thanked me for having the courage to end things, like I was the one who made the decision, like she didn't betray me. It's gaslighting. On a public scale. My phone buzzed again. Another text, this time from an old college friend. Dude, I'm sorry about the breakup, but at least you guys handled it maturely. That's rare. Proud of you for being so evolved about it. Evolved. I was being praised for being evolved about my fiancé cheating on me. I need to respond, I said. I need to tell people what actually happened. Do you? Ryan sat down beside me. Because here's the thing, if you respond, if you give your version, you're gonna look bitter. Like you're attacking her because you're hurt. Her story is clean and sympathetic. Yours is messy and angry. Which one do you think people want to believe? So I just let her lie? Let everyone think this was some mutual, mature decision? No. You let people who actually matter know the truth. Everyone else? They don't need to know. Their opinions don't actually affect your life. He was right, and I hated that he was right, because part of me wanted to blast the truth all over social media, post the audio recording of Maya and Daniel, share screenshots of their messages, show everyone exactly what kind of person she was. But that would make me look vindictive, petty, like I was trying to hurt her because I was hurt, and maybe that's exactly what she was counting on. Downstairs, my parents were already awake and had seen the post. My mother's face was tight with controlled anger. That manipulative little... She caught herself, took a breath. I'm sorry. I know she was your fiancé, but James, what she just did is unconscionable. I know. Are you going to respond? Ryan thinks I shouldn't. That it'll make me look bad. Ryan's probably right, my father said, though he looked like he wanted to argue about it. But it doesn't sit right, letting her control the narrative like this. What if we respond? My mother suggested. Not on social media, but to the people who matter. Your close friends, your colleagues, your extended family. We tell them what actually happened. Not dramatically, not vindictively, just the facts. It was a good compromise. Protect my reputation with the people whose opinions actually mattered, without getting into a public war with Maya. Okay, I said, but I want to do it my way. I want to be honest without being cruel. I want people to know the truth without me seeming like I'm attacking her. My mother pulled out her phone. Let's draft something together. We spent the next hour crafting a message, editing it, refining it, making sure it said what needed to be said without being unnecessarily harsh. Hi everyone. I've gotten a lot of messages today about Maya's post. I want to address it directly with the people who matter to me. Maya and I did not mutually decide to end our engagement. I ended it after discovering she'd been having an affair with her ex-boyfriend Daniel, including during our pre-wedding vacation at my family's lake house. This happened while our families and friends were there celebrating what was supposed to be the beginning of our marriage. I'm sharing this not to hurt Maya or to air dirty laundry, but because the truth matters. I'm grateful to have learned who she was before we got married, not after. And I'm grateful for the support of my family and real friends during this difficult time. I'm taking time to process and heal. I appreciate your understanding and ask for privacy as I move forward. James. I read it over 3 times. It was factual, straightforward, not cruel, but not sugar-coated either. It presented what had happened without editorializing or name-calling. Send it, Ryan said, reading over my shoulder, to your close circle. Let them spread the truth if they want to, but you've gone on record with what actually happened. I sent it to about 30 people, close friends, family, important colleagues. Within minutes, the responses started coming back. I knew something was off about that post. I'm so sorry, man. What a horrible thing to do to you. You deserve so much better. Thank you for telling us the truth. We've got your back. One text came from Mike. Just saw Maya's post in your message. Sarah and I suspected something like this. We're deleting Maya from our social media and our lives. You're our friend, not her. Another from a college buddy. Holy shit. I was going to congratulate her on being so mature. Thank you for setting the record straight. Want to grab drinks when you're back in the city? The responses kept coming. Each one, a small validation that I wasn't crazy, wasn't overreacting, wasn't the villain in this story. But then my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. James? A woman's voice I didn't recognize. My name is Rachel. I'm Daniel's ex-girlfriend. Well, his recent ex-girlfriend. We broke up 3 weeks ago. I sat down heavily. I'm listening. I saw his Instagram post with Maya, the one about second chances and finding each other again. She laughed bitterly. Want to know the real story? Daniel and I were together for 6 months. He broke up with me 3 weeks ago, said he wasn't ready for a serious relationship. Then I saw the post and put it together. He was already talking to her, already planning this. You think he left you for her? I know he did. He'd been weird for about 2 months, secretive with his phone, distant. I thought he was stressed about work, but now I realize he was reconnecting with Maya. Planning this whole thing. She paused. I'm calling because I saw your message circulating. Friends of friends kind of thing. And I wanted you to know that Daniel isn't some romantic hero finding his way back to his lost love. He's a guy who manipulates women and rewrites history to make himself look good. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know. And because Maya might think she won some great prize. But she didn't. She got a guy who cheats emotionally, who lines up his next relationship before ending his current one, who will probably do the same thing to her eventually. And I want someone to know the truth about who he really is. We talked for another 10 minutes. Rachel told me about Daniel's patterns, how charming he was initially, how he'd talk about his ex-girlfriend Maya constantly, how he'd painted their college relationship as this grand romance that never should have ended, how he'd apparently been in contact with Maya for nearly a year, not the few months Maya had claimed. A year. Maya had reached out to Daniel a year ago, right around the time we'd started talking about getting engaged. One more thing, Rachel said before we hung up. Daniel told me once that Maya was wealthy. Like, family money, wealthy? Is that true? No, I said slowly. Her family is comfortable, but not wealthy. I've been paying for most things in our relationship. The apartment, the vacation, the wedding. Huh. Well, he definitely thought she had money. He talked about it a lot. About how they could have had this amazing life together, if they'd stayed together. She laughed again. That same bitter sound. Guess he's in for a surprise. After she hung up, I sat there processing. Daniel had lied to his girlfriend about Maya's wealth, which meant he'd been operating under false assumptions about what getting back together with her would mean for him financially. And Maya had been in contact with Daniel for a year. A full year of emotional infidelity, of planning and plotting and keeping me in the dark while she figured out what she wanted. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This wasn't Maya getting swept up in old feelings during a vacation. This was calculated, premeditated. A year-long affair that she'd orchestrated carefully while accepting my ring, planning our wedding, sleeping in my bed. I felt sick. I told my family what Rachel had said. Watched their faces shift from shock to anger to something darker. A year, my mother said flatly. She was lying to you for a year. And apparently Daniel thinks she's rich, Ryan added, which means his motivations aren't exactly pure here either. This is a disaster waiting to happen for both of them. Good, Claire said, and we all turned to look at her. I'm sorry. I know she's my sister, but good. She deserves to be with someone who's using her. She deserves to figure out that the grass isn't greener, that she threw away something real for something that's going to fall apart as soon as reality sets in. Tom squeezed her hand. She made her choice. Yeah, the wrong one. We sat with that for a moment. Then Amanda, who'd been quiet through all of this, spoke up. For what it's worth, Maya talked about Daniel all the time. In book club, in our private conversations, she was obsessed with him, with what could have been. But his last, what it's worth, with what could have been. I always thought it was weird that she was engaged to you but couldn't stop talking about her college boyfriend. Why didn't you say anything? I asked. Not accusatory, just curious. Because I thought it was normal, like everyone thinks about their exes sometimes, right? I didn't realize it was that intense until this week. Until I saw them together and realized she'd never looked at you the way she looked at him. Amanda's face was sad. I'm sorry. I should have seen it, should have warned you. It's not your fault, she fooled everyone. That's what good liars do. Still, you deserved better. You deserve better. She stood up abruptly. I'm going to make dinner, something elaborate and delicious. Because fuck Maya for ruining what should have been a beautiful week, and fuck Daniel for being a manipulative asshole, and you need actual friends who aren't going to betray you. It was the most fired up I'd ever seen Amanda. Ryan started clapping, and soon we all were applauding Amanda's righteous anger on my behalf. I like this energy, Ryan announced. This is the energy we need. Less sadness, more rage. Less grieving what we lost, more celebrating what we escaped. Celebrating seems premature, I said. No, he's right. My father chimed in. You escaped marrying someone who would have made you miserable, who was already making you miserable, if you'd let yourself acknowledge it. That's worth celebrating. Maybe they were right. Maybe instead of mourning the end of my engagement, I should be grateful I'd discovered the truth before it was too late, before we signed legal documents and had kids and spent decades in a marriage built on lies. That evening, Amanda made an elaborate Italian feast, homemade pasta, fresh bread, a caprese salad that looked like art. We ate on the deck as the sun set, and for the first time since everything had imploded, I felt something like joy. Not because I was happy Maya was gone, but because I was surrounded by people who genuinely cared about me, who'd rallied around me without question, who were helping me see that this ending was also a liberation. Speech, Ryan called out, raising his wine glass. James needs to make a speech. I do, you do. Tell us how you're feeling. Process your emotions. It's therapeutic. I stood up, glass in hand, looking at these people who'd stuck by me through the worst week of my life. Okay, I said. Here's what I've learned. I learned that trust without verification is dangerous. I learned that when someone shows you who they are, you should believe them the first time. I learned that love isn't enough if it's not matched with honesty and loyalty and basic human decency. Everyone was quiet, listening. But I also learned that I have the best family and friends anyone could ask for, that I'm stronger than I thought I was, that I'm capable of making hard choices when necessary, and that my life isn't over just because one relationship ended, it's just beginning a new chapter. Here, my father said, raising his glass. To new chapters, my mother added. To James, Claire said. Who's going to find someone who deserves him? To James, everyone echoed. We drank, and I sat back down, and we continued eating and talking and laughing. And somewhere in the middle of it, I realized something important. I was going to be okay. Not today, maybe. Not tomorrow, but eventually. Because I'd survived the worst of it. I'd faced the truth and made the hard choice and come out the other side still standing. And that was something Maya could never take away from me. The rest of the week passed in a strange kind of healing. We stayed at the lake house, this reduced group that had become something like a chosen family. Days were spent swimming and reading and taking long walks through the pine forest. Evenings were for elaborate dinners and card games, and conversations that ranged from deeply philosophical to absurdly trivial. I was learning to exist in this new reality, single, unengaged, with a future that was suddenly wide open and terrifying and somehow also liberating. But Maya's social media post had created ripples that kept spreading outward. Every day brought new complications, new revelations, new evidence that the story she'd told publicly and the truth were vastly different things. On Thursday afternoon, I got a call from the wedding venue. Mr. Harrison? The woman's voice was professional but confused. I'm calling about the cancellation. We received your notice, but we also received a call from Miss X's. Chen claiming there was a mistake, that the wedding is still on. I closed my eyes, felt anger spike, hot and immediate. There's no mistake. The wedding is canceled. I sent you the formal notice and paid the cancellation fee. Yes, but Miss Chen was quite insistent. She said you two had reconciled, that it was all a misunderstanding, and that we should ignore your cancellation request. We have not reconciled. The wedding is canceled. If Miss Chen contacts you again, please refer her to my attorney. I gave her my lawyer's contact information. And please send me written confirmation that the cancellation is final. Of course, I'm sorry for the confusion. After I hung up, I stood on the deck staring at the lake, trying to understand what Maya was doing. Was she in denial? Was she actually delusional enough to think we could just resume wedding planning after what had happened? Or was this something more calculated, an attempt to maintain the fiction that we'd mutually decided to end things rather than her being caught cheating? Ryan found me there. You okay? Maya tried to uncancel the wedding venue. What? Why? I don't know. Control? Denial? Maybe she's trying to keep up appearances until she figures out her next move. I turned to face him. Something's not right. Her Instagram post. The venue thing, it feels like she's scrambling. Maybe things aren't going well with Daniel. It was a satisfying thought, even if it was petty to enjoy it. But before I could respond, my phone rang again. This time it was my lawyer, Jeremy. James, we need to talk about Maya. She contacted my office this morning. She what? She called claiming she wants to discuss a potential reconciliation and that you've been preventing her from reaching out to you. She asked if I could facilitate a meeting. I laughed, and it came out harsh. I haven't prevented anything. She's free to contact me anytime. She just hasn't, because she knows I'd tell her to go to hell. That's what I figured. I told her this isn't what I do, and that if she wanted to contact you, she should do it directly. But James, there's something else. She asked about your assets. Specifically, she asked if you two had any joint ownership of property or investments. We don't. Everything's in my name. The apartment lease is mine. I paid for everything. We never merged finances. Good, because I think she's realizing that walking away from this relationship means walking away from the lifestyle you were providing. And from what you've told me about Daniel thinking she was wealthy, I'm guessing he's also realizing she's not bringing what he thought she was bringing to their reunion. After that call, I did something I'd been avoiding. I looked at Maya's Instagram again, scrolled through the comments on her post about finding her way back to Daniel. Most were still supportive, but there were new comments now from people who'd apparently heard my version of events. Comments like, "Interesting how you frame this as mutual when I heard you were caught cheating. Maybe tell the whole story? My friend knows James. Said you cheated on him at his family's lake house. That's not having the courage to end things. That's just betrayal. So convenient that you found your person while still engaged to someone else. Maybe try breaking up before sleeping with your ex next time." Maya had deleted some of the negative comments, but more kept appearing. Her carefully constructed narrative was starting to crack under scrutiny. And then I saw something that made me sit up straight. A comment from someone named Truth Matters 2024. Daniel Chen is not the romantic hero you think he is. Ask him about Rachel, the girlfriend he dumped 3 weeks ago to be with you. Ask him why he thought you were wealthy. Ask him if he's mentioned money problems lately. Some of us know the real story. The comment had 73 likes and counting. Someone had replied to it. Wait, is this the Daniel Chen who works at Morrison Strategic? Because I heard he got fired last month for falsifying client reports. I clicked through to that person's profile. Someone who worked in corporate consulting appeared to be legitimate. If Daniel had been fired, that would explain a lot. Why he'd been so available for this vacation. Why he'd been pursuing Maya so aggressively. Why he'd been asking Rachel about Maya's supposed wealth. This wasn't about true love or second chances. This was about Daniel needing a lifeline. And Maya was it. I showed the comments to my family. Watched as the pieces clicked together for them too. He's using her, Claire said flatly. He lost his job, needed someone to land on, and convinced her they were soulmates, so she'd take him in. We don't know that for sure, my mother cautioned. But it does seem suspicious. Should we tell her? Amanda asked. I mean, she's terrible, but she's still a human being. Does she deserve to know she's being conned? She made her choice, Ryan said. She chose him over James. Let her live with the consequences. Part of me agreed with Ryan. Part of me wanted Maya to discover the truth the hard way, to have her romantic fantasy collapse under the weight of reality, to realize too late that she'd thrown away something real for something fake. But another part of me, the part that had loved her, that remembered her as more than just the woman who'd betrayed me, felt something like pity. I'll think about it, I said. But right now, I need to focus on protecting myself, not saving her from her own choices. That evening, I got a text from an unknown number. James, it's Maya. I'm using a friend's phone because I know you probably blocked me. We need to talk. Please. There are things you don't understand. I showed it to Ryan, who immediately said, don't respond. It's a trap. A trap? She's either trying to manipulate you into giving her another chance, or she's figured out Daniel isn't what she thought and wants you as a backup plan. Either way, engaging with her is a bad idea. He was probably right. But curiosity got the better of me. I typed back, there's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. Live with it. Her response came immediately. You don't know the whole story. Daniel and I. It's not what it looks like. I made a mistake. A huge mistake. Can we please meet somewhere private? Just to talk? No. Whatever problems you're having with Daniel are yours to solve. I'm done being part of your drama. James, please. I know I hurt you. I know I don't deserve your help. But I need to tell you something about Daniel. Something you should know. I stared at that message for a long time. Part of me wanted to know what she'd discovered. Part of me wanted to tell her I'd already figured it out, that I knew Daniel was likely using her, that her grand romance was probably just a con. But ultimately, I decided Ryan was right. Engaging with Maya would only pull me back into her chaos. Whatever she'd learned about Daniel was her problem now. If you have information I need to know, tell me now. Otherwise, stop contacting me. A long pause. Then, he's been asking about money. A lot. About investments, about my family's finances, about the wedding funds. I think he thought I was wealthier than I am. And now that he knows I'm not, he's different, distant, angry, almost. That's unfortunate. But it's also not my problem. I know it's not. But James, I need you to know I never stopped caring about you. What happened with Daniel, it was a mistake. An awful, stupid mistake. And I want to make it right. There it was. The real reason she'd reached out. Not to warn me about Daniel. To try to come back to me. Because her grand romance was already falling apart, and she was realizing what she'd thrown away. You can't make it right, Maya. What's done is done. You chose Daniel. Now live with that choice. Don't contact me again. I blocked the number she'd been texting from. Blocked her main number too, for good measure. Then I told my family what she'd said. She wants you back, my mother said, disgusted. Because Daniel isn't who she thought he was, and now she's regretting her choice. Too bad, Claire said sharply. She burned that bridge. She doesn't get to run back to James just because her rebound relationship is failing. Good for you for shutting it down, Ryan said. A weaker man might have taken her back. But I wasn't tempted. Not even slightly. Because Maya had shown me exactly who she was. Someone who would betray the person who loved her, rewrite history to make herself look good, and then try to come crawling back when her new situation didn't work out. That wasn't someone I wanted to build a life with. That wasn't someone I could ever trust again. Friday morning brought another revelation. Amanda came downstairs with her phone, face pale. You need to see this, she said, handing it to me. It was a Facebook post from someone named Jessica Martinez, dated about an hour ago. Public service announcement. If you're thinking about hiring Daniel Chen for corporate strategy consulting, don't. He was fired from Morrison Strategic for fabricating client data and overbilling. Multiple companies are now investigating potential fraud. He's been lying about still working there and taking meetings under false pretenses. Spread the word, this guy is a con artist. The post had been shared over 300 times. Comments were pouring in from people who'd had interactions with Daniel, people who'd suspected something was off, people who were grateful for the warning. "Holy shit," Ryan said, reading over my shoulder. "He's not just unemployed, he's unhireable. He burned his entire industry." "And Maya has no idea," Claire added. "She thinks she got back together with this successful consultant, her college sweetheart who made it big. But really she's with a guy who's professionally ruined and probably drowning in debt." I felt something twist in my chest. Not satisfaction exactly, but a grim vindication. Daniel wasn't a romantic hero or a second-chance success story. He was a desperate man who'd manipulated Maya into thinking their reunion was about love when really it was about survival. And Maya, in her quest to recapture some college romance, had walked right into it. "We should tell her," Amanda said again. "She deserves to know." "Does she, though?" Ryan countered. "She made her bed, literally, in James's family's house. Let her lie in it." "Ryan's right," I said quietly. "This isn't our responsibility. Maya chose Daniel knowing she was betraying me. If she didn't bother to verify who he'd become before sleeping with him, that's on her." But even as I said it, I felt uncomfortable. Because letting someone walk into disaster, even someone who'd hurt you, felt cruel in a way I wasn't sure I wanted to be. "What if we send her the link anonymously?" my mother suggested. "Through a mutual friend or something. That way she has the information, but you're not directly involved." It was a good compromise. We ended up sending the Facebook post to Claire, who forwarded it to Maya with a simple message: "Thought you should see this." Maya's response came within minutes. "I already know. We're dealing with it. It's complicated. Thanks for your concern." "She already knows," Claire said, showing us the response. "And she's staying with him anyway." "Jesus," Ryan muttered. "She really is committed to this disaster." "Or she's in too deep to admit she made a mistake," my mother said. "Pride can make people do incredibly stupid things." We sat with that for a moment. Maya knew Daniel was unemployed, possibly facing fraud charges, using her for financial stability. And she was still with him. Still posting about second chances and true love on Instagram. Still maintaining the fiction that this was all somehow romantic. "You know what?" I said finally. "This is actually perfect. Because now there's no ambiguity. No, what if she'd chosen me? Or what if it had worked out with them? She chose a con artist over someone who genuinely loved her. That's the clearest sign I could have asked for that ending. Our relationship was the right call." "Amen to that," Ryan said. That afternoon, I went for a walk alone. Needed time to process everything, to really sit with the magnitude of what had unfolded over the past week. I walked down to the dock, sat at the end where I'd proposed to Maya 6 months ago, looked out at the water that had witnessed that moment, me on one knee, Maya crying happy tears, both of us believing we were starting something beautiful and permanent. How naive I'd been. How willfully blind to the signs that she wasn't fully invested, wasn't completely present, wasn't truly mine in the way I'd been truly hers. But I wasn't angry anymore. Not at Maya, not at Daniel, not even at myself for not seeing it sooner. I was just tired. Tired of the drama. Tired of the lies. Tired of trying to make sense of why people do the things they do. Sometimes there is no sense. Sometimes people are just broken in ways that hurt the people around them. And sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away and let them figure it out on their own. I heard footsteps on the dock behind me. Turned to see my father approaching with 2 beers. "Thought you might want company," he said, sitting down beside me and handing me one. "Thanks." We sat in silence for a while, drinking beer and watching the water. A family of ducks paddled past. The sun was starting its descent toward the tree line, painting everything in shades of amber. "Your mother and I are proud of you," my father said eventually. "How you've handled all this. A lot of men would have fallen apart, or lashed out, or done something they'd regret. But you kept your dignity intact. Didn't feel very dignified. Dignity isn't about how you feel, it's about how you act, and you acted with integrity, even when it would have been easier to be vindictive or cruel. He paused. That's the mark of real strength? I keep thinking about what Amanda said, that Maya talked about Daniel constantly, that she was obsessed with him even while engaged to me. I took a long drink of beer. How did I miss that? How did I not see that I was second choice? Because you loved her. And when you love someone, you give them the benefit of the doubt. You believe the best of them. That's not weakness, son. That's what love is supposed to be. Even when it's not reciprocated, especially then, because real love isn't about what you get back. It's about what you're willing to give. And you gave Maya your whole heart. The fact that she couldn't appreciate that doesn't diminish what you offered. It just means she wasn't capable of receiving it. We finished our beers as the sun touched the horizon. The sky turned pink and orange and purple, one of those sunsets that makes you believe in beauty even in the middle of pain. What now? I asked. What do I do with all this? Space? All this future that was supposed to be filled with wedding plans? And married life? And building something with someone? You fill it with yourself, my father said simply. You figure out who James is without Maya, what you want, what you need, what brings you joy, and then you build from there. And eventually, maybe you'll meet someone who sees you clearly and chooses you without hesitation. Someone who doesn't need to compare you to anyone else, because they know you're exactly what they want. And if that never happens, then you build a life you love anyway, because your worth isn't determined by whether someone else recognizes it. It's inherent. It's yours. We sat until the sun disappeared completely, until the first stars started appearing overhead. Then we walked back to the house together, where light spilled from windows and the sound of laughter drifted out into the night. Inside, my family was making dinner. Ryan was attempting to cook something ambitious and probably burning it. Amanda and Claire were setting the table, arguing good-naturedly about napkin placement. My mother was opening wine and telling a story that had Tom laughing. This was my life now. Not the one I'd planned, not the one I'd thought I was building, but maybe, eventually, it would be enough. Maybe it would even be better. 3 months later, I stood in my new apartment, smaller than the one Maya and I had shared, but entirely mine. No ghosts, no memories of someone else's betrayal. Just clean white walls and furniture I'd chosen myself, and a view of the city that felt like possibility instead of pain. The Italy trip tickets had been non-refundable, so I'd gone alone. Spent 2 weeks in Tuscany drinking wine and eating pasta, and not thinking about Maya or Daniel or what could have been. Came back with a tan and a perspective shift and the beginning of something like peace. The wedding gifts had all been returned. The joint accounts closed. The legal entanglements untangled. Maya had tried to contact me twice more, once through a lawyer asking for her fair share of things she'd never actually paid for, and once drunk at midnight leaving a voicemail about how Daniel had left her for someone else, how she'd been right all along about them not working out, how sorry she was for everything. I'd deleted the voicemail without listening to it all the way through. Ryan told me later that Maya and Daniel had lasted exactly 6 weeks before imploding spectacularly. Apparently Daniel had been using her credit cards without permission, had moved into her apartment and refused to look for work, had gaslit her into believing his fraud charges were misunderstandings until the evidence became undeniable. She'd kicked him out. He'd threatened to sue her for defamation. The whole thing had played out on social media like a train wreck no one could look away from. I felt nothing hearing about it. No satisfaction, no vindication, just the distant, detached awareness that people who make choices based on fantasy instead of reality eventually have to face the consequences. My phone buzzed. A text from Amanda. Dinner tonight? New Italian place downtown. My treat. Over the past 3 months, Amanda had become a genuine friend. She'd been there through the worst of it, had helped me pack up my old apartment, had listened to me process and grieve and slowly start rebuilding. No agenda, no expectation, just friendship. Sounds perfect, I texted back. I walked to my window. looked out at the city waking up. Somewhere out there, Maya was living with her choices. Daniel was probably conning someone else. Life was continuing for everyone, in all its messy, complicated, painful, beautiful glory. And me? I was learning to be okay, learning to trust again, learning that one person's betrayal doesn't define your worth or your future. The sun rose higher, burning off the morning fog. I finished my coffee, got ready for work, stepped out into the new day. Behind me, the past settled into memory. Ahead of me, the future waited unknown, uncertain, but finally, completely mine. And that was enough.